was on for some reason. Okay. It's my hello everyone, this is Chuck Tirone, Reading Conservation Administrator. Consistent with the governor's orders superseding certain provisions of the open meeting law and allowing us to adhere to social distancing.
Recording in progress.
Distancing requirements during the COVID-19 crisis. The Town of Reading Conservation Commission meeting is being held virtually via Zoom for audio and video participation of the Conservation Commissioners, applicants, and their representatives and the public. During the meeting, myself or the chair will unmute commissioners, applicants, representatives, and members of the public individually as needed. During the conservation meeting, the chair will be the only one to permit anyone to share video. These controls are in place to ensure that tonight's meeting is safe and effective. At this time, the chair of the Conservation Commission will conduct a roll call vote to confirm members are present and that they can hear.
Thank you. All right, we will conduct a roll call vote, and this is the order of voting for the evening. John?
John Sullivan, present.
Joe?
Joe Carnahan, member, present.
Andrew?
Andrew Dribbin, present.
Martha?
Martha Moore, Vice Chair, present.
And Danica Scanlon, Chair, present.
Thank you, everyone. Please note that this meeting is being recorded. Also be aware that other folks may be able to see you. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by this recording. All the material of the meeting is available on the Conservation Division site, and I recommend that commission members, the public, follow the agenda as posted on the Town of Reading website unless otherwise noted. However, because tonight's meeting is being conducted remotely, I advise applicants in particular that the commission cannot discuss or consider documents which were not previously posted. Information may, however, be presented orally. Similarly, members of the public are encouraged to provide written public comment, but should understand that not all participants nor the commission members will be able to see the written comments during the course of this meeting. Before we get started on tonight's agenda, I'm going to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of business to ensure that we have accurate meeting minutes. For any response, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. After the commissioners make their remarks, and these remarks have been addressed by the applicant, the chair will afford the public comment as followed. The chair will first ask for members of the public who wish to speak to identify themselves by name. Once the chair has a list of public commentators, the chair will call out each one and afford them 4 minutes for any comment. The applicant may be requested to respond by the chair or the conservation administrator. After public comment, the chair will once again go down the line of commissioners, inviting each one to provide further comment, questions, or motions. Please hold off until your name is called. Finally, each vote taken during tonight's meeting will be conducted by roll call vote. That's what I have, Chair Scanlon.
Hey, thank you, Chuck. Appreciate it. I know we received an updated agenda from you today, and I understand we have an open forum. Is that what? I think that's what we're getting into first. Do I have that right?
Yes, so I added some notes to the agenda because some things had been continued. And this is an item that I wanted to put on, I'm going to call it Citizens Open Forum, but it's just a discussion that didn't make the agenda. So right now, I think Bob Schifoletti, I hope I have that right, is here, and I'm going to allow him on. And I know that he put his presentation together, and if you need to, Bob, you can share the screen, or I can share what you've sent out to the commission. Oh, you're muted?
There we go. It'd probably be easiest if you shared.
Sure thing.
It's just the one document, the drawing, right?
That's not, had a couple pages, but sure, it's this just here, right here.
Yeah, that was it. So basically, we had a deck replacement project. There was a request for determination, which was a negative determination. But at the same time, outside of the scope of the deck project, I've got a shed which is improperly located by 8 feet. And so we had agreed we would remove the shed, and now I'm asking if maybe it might be better to keep the shed. I think it would, and I'd like to keep it. The deck project is finished. We were never anywhere near any of the wetlands. That shed's, I don't know, it's 8 feet back. It should be 8 feet towards towards you as the photographer.
I get some close-ups on these where it's at.
So I just think the destruction of the shed is gonna, it's not gonna help anything.
Okay. Is there anything else you want to add about that?
No, you know, Chuck's been out there when we, before we started the deck part of the project, and Martha's been there and Brian has been there. It's a pristine site. We love it. The deck's finished, so we're up above all the mosquitoes, although right now the gnats are the problem. And they come up on the deck, but we love the place, so we just don't want to destroy something.
Understood. What's stored in the shed at the moment?
I've got an umbrella. I've got all my gardening hand tools. I've got a wood chipper and a power washer.
Do you store any gasoline in there?
I do have a mix of, you know, whatever the oil and water stuff for the power tool.
Okay. Do you recall the rationale previously for what conservation said about the reason to remove it?
No, it was only because it was behind the line. So you can see on the right-hand side of the picture, there's a little gate that I put in there. Yeah, so if you draw a line from there right across the front of that shed, and then look at the drawing, that's my no work zone. I could build, I could grow lawn, whatever I wanted in front of all that. And I wasn't supposed to do anything behind that. And the shed went behind it. Ultimately, it's my fault. I marked it to be in front. It got put in the back, but that doesn't matter. It's 8 feet behind where it should be.
Okay. I'll open it up to conservation comments, starting with John.
And can you remind us when the shed went in? Was it at the same time as the deck project, or was that, did this predate the deck?
No, the deck's been there for, I don't remember, maybe 2008, 2006. It was somewhere around that time.
And then when did the shed
And the
go in?
deck, I'm sorry, the deck has been there since the house was built in 1994. The framing was done, the deck was finally finished in 1996. So all we did was, the intent was to just remove the deck boards and replace them, but we replaced the whole substructure as well.
Okay, and then, I'm sorry, I might have missed it. And the shed went in when the house was built back in the 90s, or was the shed?
No, the shed went in probably 2008 or so.
2008. Okay, it was the shed that was 2008. All right. I'm not sure if I have a lot of questions. I guess, would you be open to, is there some sort of project that could be added to the backyard to like improve the habitat in exchange for letting the shed stay there? Is that something that you've considered?
Well, I do need to do something, the whole next project, I need to close out the building permit so the contractor can be paid. And they won't do that until this is done. But to the right of this, and Chuck has seen it, I've got a big dead tree. And then two others, including the one in the right-hand or the left-hand side of your picture, which is a bit of a leaner. It's not a problem today, but so I need to get somebody out there to tell me what I can, what I should take out for habitat of the house and the place, and then what I can put in there for a shade tree, because that's an important shade spot for my deck.
Mhm. All right. Well, Nick, I think that's it for me.
The whole, if you draw that line, if you look at the drawing where that no work line is, everything behind that is entirely natural, including the pond and my pond in the front yard. Behind this shed, another 70, 80 feet behind the shed is a stream. We've got ducks. They're migratory. We don't get any permanent ones, unfortunately. Lots of peepers.
Mr. Schiffeliti, I just want to clarify that the area, the shed is, so John, according to the site plans, the shed is entirely within the wetland boundary. It's in wetland.
I thought it was just within the 35.
No, so it's
Okay.
not just a no disturb.
Mhm.
Like the wetland line is the front facing side of that shed. The
Okay.
entire shed is in the wetland. And I think that's the reason why we probably, I'm speculating, I can go back and watch the videos, but I'm pretty sure that's the reason why we requested that it be moved, because essentially when a shed is there, it is building, constructing, filling in wetlands, which is actually a prohibited activity under the Wetlands Protection Act. So that's just a recap. John, I'm going to go to Joe and get comments. And if you have questions, raise your hand, John, for clarity. Okay. So Joe, I'll pass it to you.
Thanks. You actually just, between John and me, you said most of what I wanted to say. I mean, I'm afraid there may be a misunderstanding here, because I mean, Mr. Schiffeliti referred to the shed as being 8 feet out of place, but I mean, the regulations, as I understand them, normally we like to have a 25-foot no disturb zone that is just natural vegetation from the wetland outside of the wetland, and a 10 further feet buffer to any structures, 35 feet to any structures. So the shed is really more like 43 feet out of place rather than 8 feet out of place relative to the regulations, which unfortunately, given those regulations, that's why there's just not anywhere else left in the property to put it, which is my recollection of the discussion from the RDA here, was that, together the, applicant and commission looked at the property and, could not identify another location for the shed that would comply with the regulations. So that was my understanding of the situation. And that's, yeah, those are my comments.
Okay. Thank you. I'll move to Andrew.
Oh, hello. Nothing much to add, reiterate what everyone said with Joe and John. I may have been part of the conversation. If so, I was not really with it, and I haven't been to your house. But from looking at the drawings, I agree with everyone that it's not a question of moving the shed just a little bit, but it's clearly in the wetland. And I see the confusion that you were asking to build a deck, and then we're asking you to get rid of a shed. But that was the agreement, was my understanding. So I'm not sure what we're discussing now. So I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Thank you, Martha.
Yeah, my concern is just what Mr. Carnahan said, that the shed is really inside the wetland, that no works line you were talking about is really the wetland line with the wetland flags, 9, 10, 11, 12. Those are the actual wetland line flags. I wonder if there's any place under the deck that you could put the shed.
No.
I know it's kind of hard.
If I have to destroy the shed, I'll destroy the shed.
Well,
And
there have been other
go under the
people.
deck. It's not, it's in the designated wetlands, but if you look at the online map, it shows the wetlands being another 20, 30 feet more towards the stream. It's not wet back there, although it's beautiful. It is a part of the wetlands, but there's nothing wet until you go back about 30, 40 feet. And, you know, in terms of it having this 40-foot and 20-foot buffer, then that means my whole yard is an unusable yard, and I shouldn't even be mowing the grass. And I've got neighbors who have done land expansions, and I've kept my property pristine except for this one mistake. I apologize for that. And I'd like to keep my shed. End of story.
So clarify for me, you say the wetland line is actually further back than it says it is on your plot plan.
No. You are correct. The designated wetland line is shown on the drawing. If you go out there and try and get your feet wet, even in springtime, you're not going to until you're farther back from that shed.
So is the designated wetland line incorrectly drawn?
Things change. Back then, you know, I don't know. It was drawn the way it was. My pond out front is constantly growing and shrinking. The stream just changed and bifurcated in the past 2 years. Somebody has either dammed something downstream and changed the flow, or something upstream, because even around my driveway, it's gotten wetter at the driveway end, like there's not enough flow going north anymore. I don't know. So things change. But right now, and it has always been a dry area.
Well, one solution to this problem could be to have a environmental company go out and reflag the wetland line for you and see whether it is in fact incorrectly drawn for the present conditions. And that might help resolve the question of whether the shed really is in wetland or not in wetland. So I don't know if that's an expense you're interested in going to, but that, you know.
That doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, it makes sense that that's a viable solution, but from an economic standpoint, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
I mean, it took me 2 years to resurface this deck.
Right.
And pandemic and the charges that we've gone through, none of it, that's your fault.
Right. Okay, can we look at the pictures of the lawn again one more time? Okay. There are other people who have found shed moving companies that will actually move your shed for you to another location. And I wonder whether there is a part of your lawn closer to your house and further from the wetland that you could move it to, or is the only option just destroying the shed?
Right now, the only option is destroying the shed. Yeah.
All right. I will say I'm concerned when Ms. Scanlon asked you about storing gasoline and things like that in the shed, that is a risk to the wetlands. If, in addition to the structure, if there is any risk of spillage that might contaminate the wetland. So I'd rather see the things you're storing in the shed be stored in the garage. and not have a risk to the wetlands from the shed. And I hate to see you have to destroy the shed, but I also think that our job is to protect the wetlands.
Understood.
So I think I don't have any other questions.
I can certainly move the chipper and the power washer and the gas can or the oil gas can to the garage. The rest is just hand tools and garden supplies and deck furniture during the winter.
I'll speak up and just say, Mr. Schifferletti, I appreciate that effort. I hear your hesitancy to move the shed, and I understand the reasons. However, I think I'm bound by the requirements of the State Wetland Protection Act, which explicitly says you can't construct in wetlands unless you go through a whole permitting process to do so. And if you do that, you have to compensate and make up for, recreate wetlands in areas where wetlands were built on, and so there's this whole fairly complicated process that addresses that. I'm looking at an as-built of your property from 1996. And based on that as-built plan, it appears that the area between the corner of your back garage near some wooden stairs, it appears that part of your property is outside of the 35 foot. And I don't know if, Chuck, if you can go back up to the site plan, I'll try my best to describe where that area is. Could you show the whole house, please? Thank you. Do you see the number 1 in green? So between the number 1 in green and the building to the left. I'll just comment that, that looks to be an area that's outside of the 35. Do I have that right, Chuck? I think I'm reading this plan right.
Can I comment?
Sure.
This doesn't change the fact that this requires destruction of the shed. That's step number 1. If I want to come back at some later time and ask to put a shed there, I'll do that. Right now, I need to know whether you're going to make me destroy this shed or not.
Well, I think
we don't need to
if there's a way to move it and keep it intact and not
It's uphill.
destroy it.
It's uphill. It would be destroying the landscape. It would do more damage to try and move it. I mean, you could try and drag it forward. That's what I had thought about doing. But to tell you the truth, nah, I'm just going to get rid of it.
Okay.
I don't want to do that. And I think it's wrong. I think you had a deck project here and you came in and you threw another burden on me because you happened to look somewhere else. And you didn't look at any of my neighbors.
Mr.
So we'll leave it
Schifferletti,
at that.
we do always, when we do site visits, we do commonly walk the wetland line.
You should.
When we do walk that on projects on a regular basis, we do find a variety of issues in the wetlands. For example, large piles of yard waste. I understand this is not the outcome you're interested in.
No, that's okay. Just take the vote and let's move on.
Andrew?
Yeah, I mean, I think some of the frustration is that this is tied to his deck project, whereas this is really a violation. Now, I'm still trying to figure out how to handle those differently. So is there a way we could detach this issue from his deck project and put it under the violation category so that he could pay his contractor, get his deck closed? It's really unrelated to his deck and treat it as a violation. And then I don't understand fully what that means, but Chuck, is that a possibility? Oh, you're muted.
Yeah, that's a possibility that you could do. You know, if the number one objective is to pay the contractor, we could I could sign off on the permit, and that would take care of that, and then this could be a violation. The only reason why it was brought up is because it was written into the determination for this project, and it seemed like we had, you know, had an agreement. I did, you know, I don't know who mentioned it. It seems that this area, although I know everyone's keying in on the line, the area does look like it's a little bit higher than what's around it. It seemed to me that that's how it was out there, and but outside of that, I wanted to remind the commission that on Bow Street, no, it was Bond Street, and on Heinze Street, we had shed issues, and the commission came up with creative solutions. Although they were in the buffer on both, they were still creative. So one of the things typically would be to just allow the shed until it actually needs to be replaced, and that would support the idea that moving it would create more damage than already exists out there.
I think another thing we did was we allowed for the shed to be removed during the winter time, when the ground would be frozen and there would be less ground disturbance.
On which one? Oh, on Bond Street. I
Heinze.
think it was a couple years we gave them, and then to move it in the wintertime, or at least a year and a half or something like that.
But where did we say they could leave the shed in place?
Bond Street. I don't think anyone but you was on the Conservation Commission. So that Bond Street shed is clearly on within the buffer on conservation land.
Oh, see, I thought that was we're gonna have to talk about that at another time because I don't recall that one.
That's all right. You can take my word for it. I can produce the
I don't wanna-
violation and all that. But
I
it's
don't
two
wanna drag-
examples of the sheds being left in place after discussing it with the owner.
Yeah, I don't want to drag another permit into this. I'd rather just deal with, you know, the permit we have in front of us. So, you know, at this point, this is an open forum. So, you know, I think I'll just double check and see if commission members have any other comments or anything to add as final word. And I'm kind of curious, I mean, this isn't even a hearing, so should we be taking a vote on a decision just for procedural?
So I think that you have two decisions that you can make. The first would be to tell Mr. Schifoletti that you know, you're just going to stick with the original determination, which is already out there and in place. And the second would be to ask him to fill out a minor plan change and submit it for the next conservation meeting if you anticipated more discussion on this topic.
Okay. Is there any discussion on those two items?
I'm assuming you're just talking board members or?
Thank you. You're welcome to comment,
Okay,
Mr.
no, I was
Schifoletti,
just
if you'd
questioning
like.
if that includes the route of closing the building permit temper. If that second one, the minor changes includes closing the permit as of this meeting, or whether you still need to do something.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what the minor project. Can you go into more specifics, Chuck, of what you're suggesting?
Sorry, if I said minor project, I misspoke. I meant minor plan change.
Yeah,
So just present the change to the existing determination that the shed would stay as example until it needs to be replaced. And then you could put some restrictions on the land around it. I mean, that could be one example of how a plan change would work. And I already went over the other, both don't require a vote. As far as working the violation into it, or working the sign off into it, I just think it doesn't work on the first. It doesn't work on the first option, and we would have to send out a violation notice. Or you could let me know that you're okay with it, and I could sign off on the building permit.
okay, I'll go to Joe.
Right. So my understanding was that none of these, well, other than I guess the option that closes the RDA the fastest is the one where we informally agreed that we're closing the RDA, but with every intention of immediately then issuing a violation. If issuing a violation is not the way we're going, then I don't see how we can close the RDA until the
So the Conservation Commission is never asked to close an RDA.
Okay.
I don't need a vote on that.
Okay. Got it. But on the other hand, it would not be
So
great
then you
if
can
you were.
just,
But that, I mean, you could say, you could direct me to close the RDA. I mean, you could direct me to, but you wouldn't vote on it.
So go ahead, Joe.
So I was just going to say, but then, yes, without some direction from the commission, you wouldn't close the RDA, given that the RDA says the shed is going and the shed is still there.
Yes,
Yeah,
it's asked for the shed to be removed. Yeah.
So that's where we are at the moment. Okay.
So far tonight, Chuck, I've not heard any commission members entertain the notion to keep the shed there. So I have not heard anybody comment on that. So is that something you're asking conservation to consider? That we change our minds on this?
I'm just letting the commission know what has been done in the past.
Okay. Martha?
I'm concerned that there's a big difference between a shed inside the wetland line and a shed inside the buffer zone. And yes, we've been created about sheds inside the buffer zone, but a shed that's actually sitting in the wetland is that much harder to be creative about. That said, even though I hate to see a still functional shed be destroyed, I really think that I have a motion I need to make, which is I move that we vote to ask Mr. Schiffelity to remove the shed by within a year.
Can't make that vote.
Can't make that? Okay.
Yeah, the two options that you either put it on the next agenda as a minor plan change, or you leave it as is. That's
Okay. And leave it as is means he has to remove the shed.
That's right.
And we don't have to put any timeline on it.
The only thing that I would add to your comments is that you're looking at a 1986 plan, and your eyes must tell you that that land behind the shed is a little bit higher than the surrounding land. And to go with that plan after the commission has looked at it may, it doesn't seem to me to, support what's said on the plan, where that line is. I don't know if there was some fill there or whatnot, but it's certainly higher just in that little peninsula where the shed is than the surrounding land. I made that comment when we were out there too.
Anything else, Martha?
No.
Okay, Andrew?
When was the wetland delineation done that we're looking at on the map?
That's on the, what's the what's the year on that plan? It's not on our plan, but do you know that, Mr.
Well,
Schiffelity?
we purchased in 93 and it was done by then, so it was pre-93.
So these flags that I'm looking at were marked in 1993.
And then that's the as-built afterwards, yeah.
Got it.
The, you know, on the town GIS map, the shed is additionally within an estimated habitat of rare wildlife. That's part of the sort of the northern part of the military base.
Not-
So at this point, my tendency is to leave the RDA as is. So,
So what, do you know what the protection is out there? I mean, you know, I hate to always be in this position, but I think that we're talking about salamander, and there may be more habitat created with that shed than taken up, to be honest with you. So
Got a lot living under there.
well, so back in the RD for the determination, and Andrew has his arm raised. I want to get to resolution on this. I don't want to keep going back and forth. So it's not just an estimated habitat, but there's also a vernal pool on the other side of this particular house. So go ahead, Andrew.
No, I mean, I just want to get things moving along like you do as well. So you seem like well, it is what it is. I think the most option at this point is to submit a minor plan change, and then we can talk about, it's going to continue it, and it may end up in the same place. But I don't see anything other than you having to remove the shed happening tonight. We can't really agree on anything else beyond that. Does that make sense?
So if you're saying if you're saying he has to move the shed, then what's the minor plan change for?
So we could talk about some, I mean, I am potentially open to like leaving the shed there, but that requires a minor plan change. But I'd like to talk about it under a condition where we could actually make a decision, whereas right now we really can't.
Okay, okay. Joe?
Yeah, I do want to plus one something that Martha said earlier about if we actually knew the wetland line was in a different place, and I recognize that having it, you know, remarked by a wetland scientist is expensive and hence obviously unappealing. I mean, do we want to should we do a site visit and, you know, ask Chuck to bring his auger to, you know, take a look at the soil? I mean, we know it's dry. Everything's dry right now. We're, you know, welcome to the beginning of a drought. But I mean, can we come to our own conclusion there and potentially find a compromise there, or, you know, convince ourselves this is okay that way?
So just to add some more information to the commission's bank, when a wetland scientist comes in with a delineated line, it's unofficial until the commission approves it. That's when it becomes official. So that's why we can move the line. So ultimately, if you went out there and established a line, you'd be well within your right based on what you suggested.
Because, I mean, as others have said, a shed in the buffer zone, while not, you know, obviously what we want, is more in the realm of, you know, existing disturbance that we, you know, because it's extremely rare for us to look at a project in which there is not some previous disturbance, you know, inside the, you know, a structure in the 35-foot line, or, you know, some yard in the beyond the 25-foot line, often yard all the way up to the wetland line, which indeed is the case here as well. For the record, I have not heard anyone suggest that, you know, the yard needs to go away. I think that the yard is there. So if we could get this back into the realm of sort of existing disturbances that, you know, we can live with, then that's that seems like that might be the solution people will be happiest with overall.
Okay. You know, I'll go to John. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, just kind of thinking out loud here. If we go out and have the wetland line recreated, or we go out and do a site visit, and it turns out that the wetland is actually 20 feet back of where the line says, then I think we're good. But if we go out there and the line is kind of the same place except for where that shed is, then are we going to come back here and have to decide whether maybe that wetland got filled in to build the shed 15 years ago when the shed was built? Like, are we, if we're
You know,
deciding whether there was a violation of that wetland, and the wetland is now changed in position because it may have been filled in.
Then
build
you'd
a
have
shed.
to deal with, honestly, I think then you'd have to deal with all of New England. We have to put a
Yeah.
stopgap somewhere.
Yeah.
And
Today.
my tendency today, as I sit here, despite with all the discussion, is to stick with the original plan and the original decisions and just move forward with that. Unless the applicant is ready to face a bit of a drawn out situation where there's another reevaluation of the wetland line, which, I mean, what if it gets kind of tricky and we can't 100% decide on that line? And then we're talking about third-party review. I mean,
Oh,
it sounds like,
Anika, you're going way too far.
well,
at this
I'm
point.
just saying,
No,
but we
this is-
have a
that-
wetland line, Chuck, and you're telling us today, it's kind of not the wetland line.
I'm not
but
saying
it's-
kinda, I'm saying that's not the wetland line.
But that was
Okay,
what
so I
that
wanna
was the
make sure
line
that that's
decided,
clear.
Chuck, for the last RDA, and we can't constantly chase the data. We
So
got
here's
the
what's
data.
happening.
We can make our decision.
You're a no. I think Andrews wants a
Why don't-
minor plan change, so does Joe. We just need two more. And I think that what's on the table is the commission at least could look at it again and have one meeting, and a determination of applicability never goes to third-party review.
I know.
That just never
I
happens.
don't want to, but I just think
You couldn't get it there. It wouldn't happen.
I just think we've got the information. It's in the wetland. We'd like to move it out. We've asked already once.
All right, hold on. The
So-
only thing I'd like you to do is just ask the two other members what they think, and then we could move on. I want to move on to the next
ahead.
agenda item also.
Okay, go ahead. I saw Joe's hand up. I saw Martha's hand up.
I was just one sentence. This doesn't have to go any further than the applicant wants it to. So there's no real, it's not like the applicant is going to be forced to pay for a third-party review. If the commission, does a site visit, looks at the grounds, says, yeah, we still think this is wetland. Well, the applicant can just remove the shed. It doesn't, which is where we're starting from now. So we haven't the applicant hasn't lost anything by that. So.
Okay.
And nor have we, other than, we got to, take another walk in somebody's backyard, which if this group didn't enjoy going outside, I don't know what we're doing here.
Martha?
Yeah, I am willing to go for the minor plan change option only if we can go out and look at the wetland line ourselves with Chuck bringing his auger and have a chance to see what the justification would be for saying this is not actually behind the wetland line. So, if we can do that sometime before our next meeting, I'm game to do that.
Okay, so maybe we should have a motion as to whether or not people are in favor of a minor plan change.
Is that the question, or is the question, would you be open to a minor plan change?
Yeah.
Like, is it a waste of time to come back? Because a minor plan change is itself still something we'd vote on, but
Right.
we could tell Mr. Schiffelity right now whether or not it's a waste of his time to
Okay.
file that.
Martha?
I feel like I'm willing to go back and do a site visit and if he submits a minor plan change, take another look at the wetlands around the shed. So I guess that's a yes vote for a minor plan change.
Okay, John? I'm gonna go in order.
I
after
would-
that.
I guess I'm a yes on considering a minor plan change if that's what the applicant decides he wants, how he wants to proceed.
Okay. Joe?
Same, yes. I mean, obviously we have to find the wetland line is different, but if we find it, then
Andrew?
everybody gets what they want.
I mean, I don't want to do more work for myself. I'm more in favor of a minor plan change so he could get his deck done and violating it under our understanding of there's potentially a wetland. I mean, yes, we could go out there, but so anyhow, I'm open to the minor plan change. That's all that's important right now.
Okay, and I'm opposed to the minor plan change, but I'm outvoted. It's 4-1. So, Mr. Schiffelity, I think Chuck could probably talk you through the minor plan change process at some point after this meeting. And we will schedule a site visit. Should we talk dates and times at this point?
I could send them out if no one's ready. Otherwise, we can do it right now. It looks
What's
like
the
everyone's kind of
consensus of
looking. I see
commission?
two people looking, three.
Okay.
This is me opening my work calendar off camera. Yes.
Okay, I tell you what, why don't we coordinate this through email afterwards? We'll just, I'm sure this won't be the only thing we're gonna try to coordinate between meetings. So,
I would actually rather coordinate it right now
Okay.
because I know I'm going to be away for a chunk of that time. So I'm going to suggest that the morning of June 20th or 21st would work for me.
okay,
21st is better for us.
The first morning.
20th is a holiday or observance of
yeah,
a
it
holiday.
is.
Oh, that's true.
Kids will be home.
So what time on the 21st?
My kids are at school for like 2 hours.
I know, they get out at 11. Before, or not at 11, because the whole town's gonna be driving.
I can't do it at 11.
Well, I think we'd be thinking like 8:30. This is
Nine,
the,
yeah.
you know, let Andy, John, and I do drop off and then do a site visit.
Yeah,
How does
But
8:30 sound on the 21st?
works for me.
Okay, works for
Yeah.
me.
might be a few minutes after just because
Right.
Stonewall Road and Barrows are on opposite sides of town, but yes.
Okay,
Does that work for you, Chuck?
8:30 on the 21st works well.
How about we
Got it.
call it 8:40 to get Joe over there on time?
More realistic.
Yeah.
But
let's check
I've
with
got a-
Mr. Schiffelity and see if he's available for us to invade his house 8:30 Tuesday morning, the 21st.
That's
Is that
fine.
okay
I'll
with
be
you?
hanging out on the deck.
Sounds good. Okay. Sounds like we have a
Okay.
plan.
Okay, thank you for coming out today, Mr. Schiffelity.
Thank
We'll
you.
see you on the 21st.
Okay,
Great.
can I just breeze through the next two quickly?
Yeah.
Zero Small Lane, I'd like a vote to continue to June, oh, what did I say, June? Yeah, June 22nd.
2, at the applicant's request, is there a motion?
I'll move to continue the hearing on Zero Small Lane to June 22nd.
Is there a second?
I'll
I
second that.
Okay, that was John.
John.
Any discussion? Hearing none. Is there a vote?
John Sullivan in favor.
Joe Kernahan in favor.
Andrew Driven in favor.
Martha Moore in favor?
Anika Scanlon in favor.
550 West Street, would like to be continued into June 22nd at the applicant's request. I will vote on that.
So moved.
Well, a commission member has to make a,
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So
yeah, a second?
Is there a second on
Who
that?
moved it?
Anika,
I thought she wasn't allowed to move.
I'm still a member.
Okay,
well, I actually made,
He said it.
I said it and
I
she
said
agreed to it.
so
So it's
moved.
like she said it. We just need a second.
okay. Okay,
I second.
I'm keeping notes too, Martha.
all right,
It's okay, we'll capture it.
okay.
Is there a
So
second?
Mika moved and Andrew seconded. I'll vote in favor.
Andrew, did you second?
No, but that's fine.
I seconded.
That was John.
Oh, that was John. Okay.
Thanks,
Yeah.
John. Any discussion? None?
What's the story of this one right now, Chuck? I mean, from my understanding, there's not much to discuss. I don't know what they're planning on coming back with.
Who are we talking about?
550 West.
550 West Street.
I haven't heard anything about that. I could tell you a little bit about Small Lane, but I don't know anything about 550 West Street.
Okay.
And Small Lane wants to have a meeting with the two consultants and myself and the owner. And we'll be talking about stormwater.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. We have
John
a,
Sullivan in
Joe Carnahan
John
in
Sullivan
favor.
in favor.
Andrew Driven in favor.
Martha Moore in favor.
Nika Scanlon in favor. Okay, and I think we have 31 Harold Ave.
31, I'll let Jack Sullivan into the meeting.
Okay,
Hi, Jack. If you let us know who's with you for this one.
Fang Yu.
Okay, and I let Fang into the meeting.
Yep.
And I'll pull up the application.
yay.
Here it is right here.
I do not have a sketch in front of me.
I don't know what that means.
A script in front of me to open the public hearing for the RDA.
Do you want me to read what we've been doing? Is just reading what the agenda says.
Sure, do you mind? I'll pull it up for the next one.
So 31 Harold Ave, open the public hearing on a request for determination of applicability. I'm going to say by Fang. I forgot the last name. I don't have it on the screen. Sorry about that. By the owners of 31 Harold Ave under the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, MGL Chapter 131, Section 40, and or the Wetlands Protection Bylaw for the construction of a deck with 8 to 12 inch diameter concrete footings. Two sections of the deck will be cantilevered over the 35-foot zone by 3 feet. No trees will be removed or site grading during this project. All work is within the buffer zone to a bordering vegetated wetland. The application and plans can be viewed on the Conservation Division page under project by year. The map and lot number for this is 3983. And its file number is 2022-6. Jack, I guess,
Yeah.
back
Thank
to you, Anika, sorry. And
No, that's great. Thank you.
Okay, I'll kick it off. For the record, my name's Jack Sullivan. I'm owner of the Sullivan Engineering Group, and I'm here on behalf of the owners of 31 Harold Avenue. Abutters were notified by certified mailings, and copies of the certified mailings were provided to Chuck, and the DEP was provided a copy of the RDA application. This house was built around 1998. There's BVW, and there's a vernal pool on the northwesterly portion of the site. There's a conservation restriction area that makes up a little over 20,000 square feet that sits on this property. And concrete bounds, there were concrete bounds set along the 25-foot no disturb line, at least a portion of the 25-foot no disturb line. With the 1998 construction of the house, those were present in the field and were used as part of this survey. The applicant's proposing to construct a deck. As Chuck said, there'll be 8 sonotubes 12 inches in diameter. They're all going to be situated outside the 35-foot no structure zone. As allowed by the bylaw, we are cantilevering 2 sections of the deck. You're allowed to cantilever 3 feet within the 35-foot zone, so you can't get any closer than 32 feet to the BVW. So there's 2 locations in which they're looking to do that. There's no trees to be cut. In fact, there's a 28-inch tree that's going to remain right at the corner of the proposed deck. The existing vegetation where the deck's located is a grassed area. The closest portion of the deck to the vernal pool that was taken from the 1998 plan is 145 feet away. That's about it. It seems pretty straightforward. We're showing erosion control to be set at the limit of work line, 12-inch diameter mulch sock with silt fencing. And I turn it over to the commission for any questions you might have.
Okay, thanks. I'll go to John.
Thanks, Anika. I don't think a lot of questions. I was out at the site with Andrew the other day. I think it's a cool design. I kind of like how the deck will be kind of up almost, it'll feel like you're kind of sitting within the trees because there's that one tree right at the corner of the deck. The deck's going to come kind of right up against. The only thing I noticed on the site was I think it was flag 1A, which kind of seemed like it was kind of right in the middle of a like grass peninsula that was kind of extending out into the wetlands. I'm just wondering if this maybe it's an old flag or if something
that's a
happened
good
in that spot.
that's a good question, John. So
Okay.
when I went back to the 1998 plan, they had shown where a wetland line existed, but then they showed an area to be revegetated and showed a new wetland line. I'm thinking and so I duplicated the line from the 1998 plan and everything looked like it hit good, but you're right, that flag 1A, I don't think that area was ever revegetated. I think it looked like a fill area. I think it was intended to be planted, but it never was. So that's why it looks like it's more of an upland area, but I think it's an old fill area.
Okay. And then I'm not sure where it is in relation to this drawing, but kind of through the woods, right close to this property. It might be off the property. I just kind of want to check that. There's a shed kind of in the woods with a couple of cars hanging out. I want to say it's probably like off the bottom of this page, and I just want to double check that is whether that's part of this property or if that's another property.
That's another property.
Okay.
So that was Fred Bonney who passed away. That was his property, but it's off this property.
Okay. I think that's it for me.
All right, thanks, John. Joe?
Thanks, Anika. So I was with the commission ended up doing 2 site visits because we weren't able to find a time that worked for everyone. So I was there with Martha and Brian on Monday afternoon. So we looked at the wetland flags apart from 1A, which we've already discussed. The others seemed reasonable, certainly to me. We obviously couldn't deliberate on the accuracy of the flags, so that part's my own opinion. 3A seems to be the critical flag for the project. And in particular, I mean, there was some question about what vegetation existed upland from it, but the other thing we verified is that that the concrete bounds are 25 feet from the marking of where 3A is. So given that the project is, so if we trust in the concrete bounds, then the project definitely fits in, given the necessary 25 and 35 foot buffers. The other highlight, I'm going to steal Martha's thunder here, but she's the one who observed this. She observed ant damage to the 28-inch tree, fairly severe at the base. The tree itself is leaning away from the house. That's the good news. The bark is buckling on the side towards the house. And there's some strange markings on the bark on the wetland side facing away from the house. So that is not a healthy tree right there. And then let's see what else. Double check measurements. The lawn does run all the way up to the wetland flags in many places. Not actually at 3A. 3A, there's a little bit of vegetation on the upland side of the flag, although only about maybe 5 or 10 feet. I think that's it for, and in terms of questions about the project, I think the question that is going to be, does the 28-inch tree actually have to come down? In which case, should that be done now? And that's the question we should probably discuss. I'll stop there.
Okay. Andrew?
Thank you. So yeah, I visited the site, I think it was yesterday with John, and we walked around to see the flags, and John and I both were just noticing that 1A, so I agree, it seemed a little out of place. Not that it's incorrect, just there wasn't wetland around 1A. So that explains it, Jack, thank you, I think. My question is, where is the door going to be to get to the deck from the inside of the house? It's not on the map, on the drawing.
I don't have that information.
Okay. Not that we should be getting into the design of the deck, but it seems like that little extra part, I'm guessing they're putting the door off the back of the house so that you're walking onto that little walkway and then to the side, which is partially why the deck gets us into the 35-foot zone. But if the door could potentially go on the side of the home to the proposed deck, and you don't need that little platform there, that little walkway, then we won't even need to really, you still potentially have a little bit in the 35-foot zone, but less, and you're not going to be putting any footings, as many footings right by the tree, which to me, I was actually very happy to see the tree was still going to be there. I didn't take note that it was not healthy. I don't think we need to personally decide that on in the terms of this project. I think that could happen separately. But yeah, I just wondering about the design of the deck, if it could change just so that we don't need that little portion off by the tree. But without knowing where the door is, it's a little hard to say.
My guess, and from since I did the survey out there, I
Yeah.
didn't see any sort of doors or sliders on the side of the house. They did have an architect provide this plan to me, and I have the architectural plan, but it doesn't show any door or slider access to the deck. But my guess is it's off the rear of the house.
Yeah, because there's just windows. There's no door there, obviously, right now.
Yeah.
Okay, I have to think about that then. That's my only question.
Okay, thank you. Martha?
Joe has his hand up,
Oh.
and I bet he's going to say the same thing I was about to say, which is we asked the homeowners, and they said that they were hoping to put a door on the back of the house where there is now a window, and that would give them access out onto that deck walkway. They didn't say why they can't put a door on the end of the house. Okay, and I did, while we were doing our site visit, I did notice that there looked like one lawn mower's worth of grass clippings had been dumped right on top of some skunk cabbage at the back part of the property, close to, flag 6A. There was some yard waste right next to flag 6A, which I pointed out to the homeowners. They said they have a landscaper that does their lawn mowing, and they said they would speak to the landscaper about not dumping in the wetland. I guess I would like to hear more information about conservation restrictions and what that really means in terms of whether we can give permission to put a deck that close to the conservation restriction boundary. I don't know that it's our decision whether to remove the tree, but it strikes me that it probably is not going to be safe to leave that tree there. And if we give permission for this, I would like to see a request to plant a replacement red maple to replace the red maple if it has to come down. So those are my two questions. And it's also a little unclear to me exactly where the conservation restriction boundary is. There's a dotted line labeled conservation restriction that goes off the right-hand side of the page, but I don't know what happens to it down after it meets the concrete bound near the tree. Yeah,
Right.
it sort of stops there and I don't know where it goes after that.
Yep. And maybe someone can add on to this, but with a conservation restriction, there's no buffer zone protection, I believe, from a conservation restriction area. None of the proposed work is within the conservation restriction area, which we couldn't, that would not be allowed. But I don't believe there's any sort of buffer. I think you can do work right up to it. I tried to label, you can see where the leaders go to that dashed line, and then they run right along the wetland line out towards Harold Ave. But all the work's outside of it. And I'm not sure if you spoke to the owners when you were out there about the tree and if they'd be willing to take it down. I would think they would, and I would think if it needs to be taken down, I think they would, and I think they'd gladly replant a tree. But I don't know if that came up at your site visit. I wasn't there. Oh, but the owner has his hand up, so maybe he can add to that.
Hi, my name is Fang Yu. I'm not the owner. I'm the next door neighbor from 27 Harold Ave. I just have a question about the tree because from what I can see through the window, it's such a tall tree and look healthy. I don't know how you decide that's a healthy. It's really large, tall tree there. So it is a healthy or? Hello?
Martha, do you want to
Can you
answer
hear me?
this?
Well, Joe has his hand up.
You were
Let Joe speak.
you were busily taking notes, Martha. I didn't want to ask you to do two things at once. But there is a very large pile of sawdust, maybe let's say 8 inches wide and 1.5 feet high, coming out of a hole in the bottom of the tree, basically from ground level to about 1.5 feet up. I have a photograph of it, which I did email to the rest of the commission prior to the meeting. There were also carpenter ants crawling over the sawdust, so there was not really a mystery as to who made it. So my understanding is that is, because indeed, you're completely right. The leaves, you look up, the shade that provided by the leaves is lovely. I would honestly be really sad to lose that tree, for shading my proposed deck. But I also wouldn't want that tree to die in 3 years and fall over and rip out the footings of my brand new deck either in the process. So you see the problem there.
Yeah, it's the question is not related to the deck. I'll just sit by and hear about the tree. So.
Ben, can I ask you a question? You're at 27 Harold Ave, correct?
Yes.
According to the aerial photos, there was construction, and we can talk about this later, but there was construction behind your house into the conservation restriction limits.
Which one? What kind of construction?
So it was construction where a rear patio, some sort of hardscape was put behind your house by 2015.
That was from the previous owner.
Oh, okay.
I think they went through all this.
Oh, we did. Yeah. Okay.
Right.
All right. All right. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So do you have other questions, Fang?
Yeah.
Do you have other questions on this particular project?
I'm just sitting. Yeah. No.
Nope, you're all set. Okay. I'm just going to chime in about this particular project. You know, so the whole idea, you know, ideally, I would like to see the proposed deck redesigned to stay out of the 35-foot. And the reason why is because that 35-foot is supposed to be an area of that allows for, you know, to protect the growth of the area within the 25-foot. And there's already going to be some added shade and some added sort of change to the environment with the construction of this deck, you know, as opposed to constructing it on the other side of the house, kind of farther away from the resource area. And it seems like a pretty generous deck. So it looks, based on the plan, that there is an ability to reorient, modify the design of the deck to keep it out of the 35. And so that's what I'm looking for. And in terms of the 28-inch tree, I'm just going to concur with what Martha said, that if it's staying and it falls towards the wetlands, then, you know, it be kind of left as is, or it be replanted with another, it be replaced with another in-kind similar tree. So those are my comments. Jack, do you have any responses or feedback?
I wanted to follow up with on the cantilever. I see your point. If it was a permanent roof structure with a roof overhang, but I think in this case, in the bylaw does allow for a 3-foot cantilever, and in this case, this does not have a roof. It's open, so it's not like a typical solid structure with a 12-inch roof rake and you cast shadows. It's an open deck. So I would just push back a little bit on that. I think they would have some trouble getting out of the rear of the house and getting around that corner to where the meat of the deck is if they had to pull it out of the 35 feet. So I'm just putting out that for you and for other members to talk about it. I can see your point if it was going to cast shadows or have a large roof area. This is all open.
It's not going to be a metal grate, right, that completely lets all light through. There's going to be some planking, and most of planked decks do create shade. So,
but it allows water to move through it. It's not a solid roof structure, and so there are gaps. Sunlight would still get through. But I see your point, but I don't see why you would have the allowance of a cantilever. This seems to fit that criteria more than like a solid roofed area or something with a roof.
I just see an opportunity to stay out of the 35-foot, and I think as long as there is an opportunity, it's what should happen. Because, you know, we're constantly making exceptions to our rules, and we gotta hold the line. And I understand it's just a small amount, and I may not be the majority opinion on this, but that's where I land with that.
I can talk to the client about it, Anika, but I don't think in this case we're making an exception. We're not looking for a variance. It's allowed under the bylaw. So it's something we're doing under the bylaw. So I can talk to the client about it. I know they did hire an architect, and they did want to try to maximize the area, and we just have to see how they can get from the rear of the house around if they did have to pull it back.
And why aren't they going to the other side of the house that's farther away from the resource area?
Probably with the flow of their house. I don't know how the inside of the house is set up, but let's say the kitchen's on that side. They may want to go right from the kitchen out onto the deck and have meals out there. Other, if they don't want to walk all the way through the house, but I don't know the internal house setup.
Okay. Chuck, do you have any questions or comments?
Okay, yeah, thank you. Yeah, I had some questions. So I did want to pick up on what Anika said, that it's in the bylaw does allow for cantilevering. I sent that out to the commission, but I don't know if it's a separate vote, but it is certainly up to the commission. So we're going to need to know if the commission will allow it. If it's not allowed, then you could be back into the, into the variance request. But I guess maybe if it's not allowed, it won't move any further than that. So the point of that conversation was it's not by right. Everybody has an opportunity to present their case, and it just needs to be accepted by the commission, or it can't be done. So the wetland line, it sounded like you picked this up from a very old plan. And there was that 1A flag inconsistency. But I do understand that each flag lined up with a 25-foot granite bound. I don't know how far back we've been accepting wetland flags, but this one here and the one at 10 Stonewell seem to be the oldest one I remember in the last couple of years. So I just wanted to make that point also. The CR should be marked off on the entire property of this property so we can understand it. And secondly, I would like to know what conservation restriction is protecting, because I heard one of the commission members saying that it is lawn right up to the BVW. And I'm wondering if that is allowed within the conservation restriction. So I'm not sure that was provided with this application. As a matter of fact, I don't think it was. And so that might be interesting to look at and to find out, because this house was allowed in this spot because of that conservation restriction. And I know that it was a very long time before we actually got this. It was probably the second or third year that I was here, and it had gone, several years with Fran Fink. And so anyways, I don't know what the restriction is. I know that it's pretty one-sided, where it's not like open access to the public and permission has to be granted for the commission to review it. But outside of that, I don't know any of the details. I agree with replacing the red maple. I just think the tree should be evaluated by an arborist prior to the commission making a decision about asking. I think the commission should ask about having the tree evaluated and consider taking it down, depending on what the evaluation comes out as. And then on the plan, Jack, I just want to, right here, it says, I'm going to use my great little tool right there.
Yep.
Edge of exclusive use. And this is the conservation restriction line. So I'm kind of confused by those two. It might mean something else. So that's why I wanted to ask.
Right. So this development back in the 90s was under a PRD, a proposed residential development. It's one lot consisting of 61,816 square feet. Within that lot, they broke out exclusive use areas for, I guess, number 27 and number 31. So those are the edge of the exclusive use areas. That's the area that so for number 31, they have exclusive rights to the area to that point that you highlighted.
So it has nothing to do with the conservation restriction. Okay, thank you.
Done. Yep.
Can I just kind of double down on that, because on the town GIS, that edge of exclusive use is mapped as the edge of the conservation restriction.
then they have it wrong. I took this right from the Registry of Deeds.
Okay. Okay. I know there's discrepancies sometimes. I just, yeah, the town GIS mapping system has the entire lot for, what is it, like 39-75 as all conservation restriction.
Okay, yeah, I took it on the with their deed, there's a plan reference that's how I gained these boundaries. So this would be more accurate than the GIS.
All right, Anika, I had one more question, and it's actually to you. So I was also had questions about the neighboring lot, and you seem to have agreed that someone gave a permit for that patio and driveway that's extends over the conservation restriction area. Is that what I heard? Because you seem to have dropped the subject.
You've I mean, I'm totally, if I've dealt with it I don't remember the history of the property. I do recall us trying to get into the history of the other property of 27 and what the resident commented registered as something that was familiar. So to me, I don't have, every time I get into these old stories, I have to kind of dig in.
So this is not, you're not looking at a permit. You didn't look for permits. This is just from memory, because we've been chasing that property. We, as in the Conservation Commission, have updated the Conservation Commission on it and said that we've contacted the state because there's an encroachment. So the state's aware of this, and I'm surprised to hear you say that after it was brought to the Conservation Commission, because it sounded like it didn't need to be brought to the state.
No, don't. I'm not giving any feedback on whether I'm totally right or totally wrong. I just remember the discussion. I don't know. I don't remember how it all.
Okay, so
if at all. It just registered as something I've heard before. I don't know where it's at.
So as my understanding at this point, there is no permit. There wouldn't be a building permit for such a structure because building doesn't do a patio permit. It would only be a permit through conservation. I didn't find one. That was one of the first thing I did. So I didn't realize this was the owner of that property. I want to let you know that the Conservation Commission can see that there is encroachment over the CR, conservation restriction line, and we've been talking to the state about them getting involved to make sure that the conservation restriction is protected. It's the state's responsibility to enforce that line along with the help of the Conservation Commission. So that patio that you have been using is over the conservation restriction line, and depending on what we find, it could be removed. I see that you've come online.
Yeah, so Chuck, when did this state then? When did you
So
ask?
the way a conservation restriction works is everything is restricted unless it's mentioned. So you would have to find your patio in the conservation restriction in order for it to be allowed. It's really quite about that simple. What I think happened is that, it's a patio on the back of the house and no one saw it, and it just happened over the weekend. But that's just a guess based on my position. I've not finished the review or my discussion with the state, but that's what it looks like.
So the patio was built by the previous owner, and then
yeah, that doesn't
right.
Grant there's no grandfather clause in that. It's still, you know, it's still your responsibility since you are the owner. You know,
Yeah.
this meeting is not about that site. I just wanted to, you know, let you know that it would be great if you came down to the town hall or called me on the phone so we could discuss this further. I'd like to do a site walk and let you see the information that I have about that and talk about possible solutions.
Sure, I can go over to the town, but as I know, before we bought the house, it was cleared by conservation. There was a check, I think there's some kind of documentation that the conservation cleared anything along the property.
What
Stuff
we,
like-
yeah, what we want to see, so there was probably a conservation permit for the house, for the building of the house. So we'd have to go back and find the plan that was approved, and if it showed a patio, then that's all we need. You may have those documents, or they might be recorded with your deed. That's the kind of stuff that we would need to know.
I can be there when, I don't want to, you know, take too much time.
Sure, yeah, this might be just a relatively simple
Yeah.
conversation.
Right.
So,
I can stop by and check, you know, when it's a good time.
okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, Andrew?
Okay. I wanted to just comment on that there's actually 2 cantilevers being proposed. I mean, I'm not sure what the limit is. So I want to reiterate what Anika mentioned, that I think this deck is asking a lot. They would obviously, like you said, Jack, they're trying to maximize the site or the plan. I don't think they should move the deck to the other side. I don't really know that one. I do think this side could have a nice impact and it would be nice, but it would be wise of them to redesign it to try to stay out of the 35-foot zone, or at a minimum only propose 1 cantilever rather than 2.
Okay, I can talk to the owners on that.
Okay, that'd be great.
Okay, any other questions, Andrew?
No.
Okay, Martha?
Okay, I'm thinking that if we were to allow this project, I'd really like to see the zone of natural vegetation improved around the edges of the yard and pull it back away from the wetland line. And, you know, pulling it all the way out to the 25-foot line might be a lot to ask, but we have in other projects in compensation for allowing building a deck or a swimming pool or something like that, asked to have some plantings done 5 or 10 feet in from the wetland line to help protect the wetland better. And this wetland is clearly being mowed right up to the flags and in some cases past the flags. So I would like to suggest that if we approve this project, we mitigate the project with some zone of natural vegetation replacement. And somebody asked exactly what are the requirements for the conservation restriction, and that would be a good thing to find out, whether we really need to expand the zone of natural vegetation right out to the conservation restriction line or not. And I don't know what the rules on that are. That's it.
Okay. I appreciate your comments. Joe?
Just for the record, and maybe this will help us wrap up the conversation, I have found a conservation restriction on this property done in 2014. I can share I've been poking around on the Middlesex Registry of Deeds while everyone's been talking, so I can share the reference to that to Chuck and to the commission. Obviously outside of the meeting, I can't, no, I mean, I could present it here, but we don't want to read a 15-page conservation
Yeah,
restriction.
it would
in a
have
public
to be
meeting.
something we review in between meetings
Yep.
and discuss at the next one. That'd be appreciated. Send it to Chuck and
Thanks.
send it along. Any other questions from conservation members? None. Any questions from the public? Seeing none. Jack, any last questions or comments?
No, if Joe forwards that conservation restriction information to Chuck, if someone could forward that to me as well by email,
Sure
just so
thing.
I could read
Yep.
through it. But that's it.
Okay. It's okay. In that case, I'll entertain a motion since there's some more information that needs to be looked at.
So what, can you go over the asks, just so Jack is aware of what we want to see at the next meeting? I've heard a buffer strip or some return to the zone of natural vegetation, reviewing of the conservation restriction. I don't know if others have asks for Jack.
I heard the cantilever being reduced from
Yeah.
2 areas to 1.
Yeah.
And I made a note on the 28-inch trace. Someone asked it to be evaluated, and if it is dying or in bad shape, we show it to be removed and then replaced with, I think someone asked for like a red maple.
Red oak.
Red oak.
No, red maple. It is
Oh.
a red maple. I'd
Oh,
love to see a
it was red oak.
replacement red maple.
I do want to highlight what Martha said during the site visits about grass clippings near 6A.
Yep.
Let's
That's
pull
right.
out the yard debris.
Okay. If no others, we're just a motion to continue with Jack's permission or the applicants.
Yep, I would ask of the commission to please continue this to your next meeting.
I move to continue this hearing to the June 22nd meeting.
Second.
Was that Joe seconding?
Yep.
That was, yes.
Okay.
John Sullivan in favor.
Joe Kernahan in favor.
Andrew Driven in favor.
Martha Moore in favor?
Anika Scanlon in favor. Jack, are you here for other business?
Nope, that's it for me tonight.
Okay,
Thank you, everyone.
have a good evening.
Thank you.
Okay,
Hi,
you too.
Jack.
Yep, thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Okay, so Chuck, our old new business, we have what, 10 Quarry Lane?
So 10 Quarry Lane, so there's just a little confusion on how that's working. I don't see the owner or the attorney here, and that's expected because we had this email exchange at the end of the day where I started out by thinking that they were coming tonight to explain the conservation restriction. So the conservation restriction is written by the owner and their attorney. It's reviewed by the Conservation Commission. We comment on it. Those comments are added to the conservation restriction. And then it's sent to the state and the state adds comments. The commission reviews it, signs it, and sends it to the select board. The mistake, it's not the greatest way, and it was complicated. So what ended up happening is I think they thought the state reviewed it first, then we'd comment on it. So we're looking for, so they didn't plan on coming to this meeting because the state hasn't reviewed it first. So with that, the acknowledgement page that the commission signed, they sent the conservation restriction to the state. So when it comes back from the state, that's when we're going to have to do our review and send it back to the state for them to review it. So it's just kind of, I think it slowed down the process. The only thing I asked the applicant to do about this is they have to come to a meeting and present this to the Conservation Commission so you're well aware of what's going on at the site. And I can bring up the plan, but you all saw this, and let me see. Here it is right here.
It's the one that got away on Quarry Lane.
Well, I think to be honest with you, the owner said that he thought it was recorded, but never could find the recorded book and page or the original documents. He's willing to have it recorded, although yes, the house is being sold. So that fact has created the necessity for this to happen. And there's the conservation restriction. and where it says 29.29 is a vernal pool, which is certified. So it's a complicated site. And again, I'm going to say, like I usually do, that site, that house wouldn't be there unless that conservation restriction was in place. So it's important. We're certainly asking for this to be finalized prior to signing off on the house or anything else that's needed, and the owner is willing to do that. So we'll hear about this in the future. If there's no questions, I can move on.
If you have a question, raise your hand. I don't have any questions.
Great. So the next thing on old new business is the CPDC Matera Cabin sign. I sent that out today. That's a Monday meeting. This is Monday coming up after the weekend. And I sent it out and I got some comments. I've already got approval for purchase the sign from the Conservation Commission. But I got some comments from Joe who reminded me that there are no bears in Reading. And so it was just a spelling error based on what we got back from, I don't know what they call those, but anyways, the visuals from the sign company, and we're going to correct that. Plus, we're also adding the address to the area underneath the sign. So with those two corrections, I didn't hear anything else
Okay.
come up except for what Andrew said, which was he didn't think it matched the decor of Matera. And I don't know if Andrew wants to talk about that, but please feel free if you want to.
Well, I mean, I probably already approved the sign, so I'm not sure what merit it has at this point, but in the future, when we design these signs, I think we could think about them a little bit more so that they match what they are. It's a log cabin with the conservation area. The public works sign isn't the most appropriate for here, but it will be more noticeable than the existing one.
Oh, okay. Well, I can't leave that. I think about it a little bit more. I have to push back on that. It was thought about. This sign is exactly what this area needs. This is an invisible spot in town. That sign is highly visible. It may even be shocking. But what we need is some visibility to the area. So I wanted a sign that matches this sign, which has the town colors. It won't have the town seal, but it will have the granite posts and the black trim, white lettering, and no town seal. It's a lot smaller, but it will stand out. This is more what we're looking. Bear spelled wrong, that has been checked, and we're going to have the address down at the bottom. So this is the sign here, and no one really wanted to visit this tree. So with the work that we did with the garden, and now we have the garden, we have Bear Meadow, and we have Matera Cabin. We have three things on one property. So I'm considering it a complex, and people are visiting it, and it's being highlighted through all the activity that's happening. This sign was designed so that an additional sign for the community garden can be installed underneath, kind of a swinging banner sign that the community garden group may purchase next year, and to let everyone know where that is. So again, this is what we came up with, and it's supposed to highlight the area. I think it does that. I know that there's enough of those signs that are made out of telephone poles and old log cabins with the, what is it, the 5/4 boards, and it's been carved into. Those are traditional, and they look like, you know, you're at the White Mountain National Forest. But I thought, for the fact that we're having three things here, and you know, I get comments that no one knows where this place is, it would be better to have a very visible sign. So that was my reasoning behind it. I did send that to Andrew and Andy in an email. And of course we didn't agree, but that's fine. That's how it works. I think we're stuck with the sign though at this point, but any other comments,
Joe?
you know, would be fine.
So, Chuck, if I were trying to pitch this sign to the Conservation Commission, I wouldn't say it looks just like the one at the DPW. I would say it looks just like the one at Town Hall, because that one is also a red sign with the same color lettering as the DPW one on granite posts.
There you go. Yeah.
So,
and you are pitching it.
Arguably, it is arguably the sort of the official. It's what Reading town property signs look like for town facilities. You know, we ever build a senior center, we'll put a sign like this in front of it, probably, that kind of a thing. So that was sort of, yeah.
There's the spot right there, and you know we have to worry about sight lines, and it, you know, again, you know, it's not tradition. I get it, but for the other reasons that kind of overruled tradition, I went with this sign. Town colors, and I think Joe said, you know, what needed to be said. It's a town sign. It's pretty much going to be the town sign. When new signs go up, this is the colors we're using. Okay.
I mean,
wait,
just
Andrew,
quick-
go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I'll leave the design education behind, but there's more than those two options. I am not a traditionalist. I do think we can, for future signs, come up with some more interesting things, and I think we should be open to that. It's not just electric poles with 5 3/4 versus this. There's other things we can do. And I think for particularly with the Matera cabin and the visibility issue is really a road sign. You need a road sign, especially going north, that says Matera cabin up ahead or something along those lines. And that's going to be what, I mean, I drive there, even if I see the sign, I'm going to be braking because it's like, oh shit, there, oh, there it is. But what we need is something on Main Street that's a 1/4 mile ahead that says Matera cabin ahead or Bear Meadow, whatever it is. And that's what's really going to help the visibility and people knowing where this is.
Sure. We have other signs to come up, and so at Pinevale, we're going to need a sign. At Millette, we're going to need a sign. So there's other opportunity for other designs to be worked in.
Yes.
So
good.
That's where we're at.
I just want to chime in that when I saw the design, I don't have a problem with the design of the sign. I see how you're trying to mimic within the price point that we have. I mean, that's a restriction too. You know, a best fit in something that's fairly uniform and eye-catching. So there's a couple functional boxes we have to check. And at the same time, Andrew, I hear you loud and clear that it would be great if we could do something that really makes it stand out from a visual perspective. It's interesting, like my original reaction to the Matera cabin at Bear Meadow, I thought for a split second when I read that sign in your packet, Chuck, that it was a new housing development, right? Matera cabin at Bear Meadow, right? That's kind of what it sounds like a little bit. But I'm fine with it because it might just draw people in.
I will tell you, we're not locked on the language that's on the sign or on the text, you know. So
I mean, we could say Matera cabin conservation area.
Established 2007 or whatever it is.
You know, Matera cabin conservation area. Just, you know, so people know.
I wanted to get the only reason why I wanted to get Bear Meadow in it is because it's you know, did you see the thing was, and of course I'm not designing it all myself, you guys have input, but it was Matera cabin, it's going to have the garden sign and Bear Meadow there, so I've mentioned all three. Yeah. But what's another option? I mean, we have time.
No, I'm not going to rewrite. I think it's great as is. I think a lot of work has gone into it. I think we should just move forward because we're getting progress on this. and I thank you for putting it together. So
Sounds good.
for
Okay,
for the
let's-
sake of the CPDC, we probably should have a little vote on this. Martha?
I just was gonna say, what about just add the words conservation area under Bear Meadow? So Matera Cabin, Bear Meadow Conservation Area.
I don't know if that blows us past our price point
oh, I don't know. Yeah,
or budget.
we'll find
Don't-
out. We
I'm about
have,
to
we
say,
have,
don't we have a gift fund? Because I'd totally spring for the words conservation area on this sign. I think that's a good
we don't
addition.
have a gift fund until someone donates into
Well,
the
okay,
gift.
but there we go.
Okay. Any other questions, Martha?
No, that's it.
Yeah, the sign company's been working with us. We made some other changes and they didn't say, oh, you've gone up on price. I think it's all about room. This is a company that the town works with. So the next thing on the agenda is the opera request and,
Should we vote on that before it goes to CPDC?
oh, sure, please, yeah.
I think
And
you
then talk
wanted
about
that.
who's coming on the 19th.
Yeah.
19th or 13th.
So the
No, it's the
19th.
13th. It's the 13th.
Okay, 13th, good. I'm glad you clarified that. So the CPDC sign, who is in favor? I think we should just have a hand.
You know, this is the second vote, by the way. You
Yeah,
already
we voted
approved,
on this.
yeah, you already approved me with the sign. I think I did.
But the final design, right?
Well, I'm not approving the final design.
Okay. All right, well, then we don't need a
You-
vote.
you can-
Nothing, let's-
yeah,
let's-
no, this-
Let's have an opportunity to outvote Andy on the final design. How about that?
Yeah.
Well, if we don't need a vote, we'll just, yeah, definitely. Let's move on to ARPA.
Okay. So yeah, we have an opera request coming up. It's we have this date, right? The 15th, June 15th. It's at the library, and we have a great little presentation put together.
I saw the presentation. I saw the.
I don't know.
PowerPoint.
I don't know what to say.
It looked great. It was the Bear
Yeah.
Meadow Stewardship Maintenance Plan.
Yeah. If you look at the screen, you can see what's going on. I'll just go through this quickly because we'll be doing this at the meeting. So one of the things is that and you guys must know this by now, I'm getting grief from some other colleagues in town not to have pictures that we know where they've come from. So I had to change the pictures. This one is a stock picture. But this is invasive that's coming in. These are pictures I took. This is a picture of our town surveyor, and this is actually Bear Meadow. So the presentation is on the 15th. We'll be asking for, let's see. I thought the first couple of slides. Oh, $31,500. And it's for a combination of the stewardship maintenance plan, the survey for 2 pieces of land that have been donated to the town, except the town council wants us to have them surveyed first. So that expense is all we'll have to bear for these 2 pieces of land. And, one's 1.9 acres and the other one's almost 10 acres. So it seems reasonable if someone's offering land, you should take it. Now there's a bike rack for Matera. And there is some thought about invasives. And again, this thought about invasives has a lot to do with this management plan and management and stewardship plan, because there is going to be invasives involved in that management. So this money that we're asking for is for around town and for Bear Meadow. Bear Meadow is going to come up with some problems. So that's it in a nutshell. Joe has been gracious enough to as a commission member, he's going to present this PowerPoint presentation at the APA meeting on Monday night. And
Wednesday, right?
it's Wednesday night. Sorry, I get my meetings mixed up. Wednesday night, and me and Joe will be there in person. If
I'm planning
anyone
on being there too.
If anyone else wants to come, that's great, but no more than 3, please.
So Andrew, you want to go?
I have it on my schedule, but if
Okay.
anyone else, there's overwhelming, okay.
No, that's great.
Yeah, we make it. Are we about to? We make it, Brian? I can't remember.
Brian, I think won't be around.
We won't be able to make it.
That's why
Or
you're.
he's still
if you were
traveling.
coming, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Chuck, I assume you'll be there too.
Yeah, I want to go. I have a presentation from Millette, Psalms and Morganland. We have to finalize that. We're asking for $100,000 to finalize the plans, and so that we can get a kickstart and a head start on the project.
Great.
So we can't do that without 100% plans and get the bids out. And then I'm also going to be there with the Trails Committee, who are asking for some opera funds for 200 feet of all the stock needed to complete 200 feet of trail, boardwalk trail. So they've never had that before and a place to store it. So maybe that'll come true also. So that's APA. And then I'm going to turn this over to, I guess it was Anika and Joe were the only ones that signed up for Saturday's Friends and Family Day.
So Friends and Family Day, looking forward to it. Saturday, 10:30 to 3. I've got a table. I've got Martha's track stamps. So the kids can do a little stamping and figure out which footprints are which. I'm planning on getting either over to Mahoney's or over to Garden in the Woods to grab a native shrub or a couple of native plants to raffle off.
Mhm.
Give away, not raffle. Also thinking of giving away one family membership to Mass Audubon or trustees.
Yeah.
As those two things. So that's the idea. Just basically hang out and interact with the public and have informal discussions. I have the sign, Chuck. I have a table.
Yeah.
So I'm not planning on having a turtle. Just freebies and I think I have some leftover seedles from Town Forest Day. So I'll give out a couple of those. I couldn't
No.
order any more. Those were sold out.
You know, it might be interesting also, and you don't have to do this. And so I'm probably not going to go. I would let you know if I am going to go. I'm thinking not. I'm spending my Friday at the community garden. So I didn't want to do two, and it looks like you guys have it. But one of the things that I want to say that's always interesting is to grab some invasives and have them on the table so people can recognize them in their yard. It's super awesome to talk about those things. You know, Phragmite, you know, you can do the buckthorn, you can get Japanese knotweed, all good conversation starters. Yeah, and if there's a giraffe around, I understand giraffes and gorillas and eat the Japanese knotweed. So if someone brings, there's supposed to be animals, maybe you could add that to their dinner.
There are plenty of invasives right along Birch Meadow Drive that you can grab on your way there.
I want to see you grab the Phragmite. That's well, there's probably some near the road.
Yeah.
I was going to say, is it what's growing in the ice rink there, or the outdoor, you know, the
That's actually native.
Oh, excellent. All right, cool.
Yeah.
I mean,
but out closer to Main Street, you've got Japanese knotweed lining both sides of the road.
Yep.
That's an easy one.
Yep.
And there may be some multiflora rose near the crosswalk over to Poet Circle.
Yep.
You know where that is?
I do know where that is.
Yeah. And of course, the Phragmites that's growing in the stream along between the football stadium and the road. But
Yeah.
you might have to get your feet wet to grab some of that.
You could just take, just to say, we did a site visit with someone from Parterre Ecological. We walked through the town forest. You could grab all that, including swallowwort, at the town forest. So walk in through lot 5, and you'd only have to walk, past the power lines or past the gas line, and then come back.
Yeah,
you could
and
grab
grab
all
some
that.
buckthorn in the town forest while you're
Oh,
at it.
sure, yeah. Buckthorn, swallowwort, tree of heaven, burning bush. It's right
That's the
there.
swallowwort.
I'll bring my own burning bush. I'll cut the whole thing down. I'll just, yeah.
Hand
Okay.
it
I was thinking I can about to say there's more garlic mustard coming up in my side yard.
I think people
probably
would
grab
find
some
all
on my way
that
out the
stuff
door.
interesting. Yeah,
Yeah.
you could do a garlic mustard salad.
Yeah, I might. Anyway, okay, so next, Trails Committee, general permit.
Before you go on, so Nika and Joe, you plan on being there both from 10:30 to 3, or what's the plan?
I'm planning on doing that.
Okay.
Yeah, I was planning on. I have gotten clearance to do that as well. So
Okay. Well, I'll definitely be stopping by after.
which means
I
that
get
which means
soccer.
one of us can be at the table, while the other one goes and gets, hot dogs or whatever for lunch.
Well, thank you. Sounds.
Whatever else they have.
Just to warn you, they suggest that you arrive with your car full of your stuff that you need to set up with between 8:30 and something. They divided it alphabetically, and of course, we got the early shift.
Okay.
Okay.
So
no problem.
moving on, the Trails Committee general permit. So I'm going to recommend that the Conservation Commission extend the Trails Committee general permit 270-0568 for 5 years, which is the maximum that you can extend a general permit. This order of conditions expired in May 11th, 2021, but with the tolling period from COVID, the new expiration date, according to the governor's what is that? I don't know. Yeah, order. Yeah, the governor. Thank you. The governor's orders. The new expiration date is August 16th, 2022. So there is time to discuss it, but there's really nothing to discuss because either you're extending it, or if you have anything that needs to be changed, you have to ask them to do another one, and you have to refuse to extend it. My recommendation is that so much work went into this general permit for the Trails Committee that we take that into account. And it's been passed around a few times. I think on several occasions it was sent out in this packet. I'm recommending that we extend it for 5 years. It's worked out fine, and there hasn't been any issues. They generally ask questions when they need, or there's enough people on the committee that someone mentions the Trail Committee. Plus, we always have another member at the Trails Committee meetings lately. I'm the liaison now. So the Town Forest Committee has someone from the Conservation Commission, and it's usually the Trails Committee also.
I'm just gonna comment, Chuck. I'm fine with extending it to August 16th of this year. There is one little recommended edit I have to that permit at that point. And so I guess I'm wondering if I'm not here at that point, like, should I mention that now? I mean, I'm okay with the permit as it is until August. We don't have to change the permit now. But when they go for renewal in August, there's one little edit that I have feedback on.
I'm super
So-
curious of your edit, but you didn't understand what I was saying. If you make any changes, you have to ask them to come in,
Right. No, I
for a
know
new permit or for a minor change. I guess that's how that would work.
So,
And no one's asking for an extension until August 22nd. This is still in effect, and they want a 5-year extension.
right, but you're saying the 5-year extension goes to this August,
No, I'm not. I'm saying they want a 5-year extension.
starting
this-
from this August.
And this order expired in May 11th, 2021, but through the tolling period due to the governor's orders, it has been extended through the governor's orders
Okay,
to
okay.
August 16th, 2022.
So at this point, what you're saying is the next, you're asking us to extend it to
What's your, yeah,
August 16, 2028.
yeah.
So my small edit is to put the word, so on page 15, okay, on page 15, list of special conditions 1C, you just add the small word de minimis between and backfilling. So it reads, and de minimis backfilling any excavations to provide an even surface. Because I'm thinking of the, I'm thinking of some aggressive, moderately enthusiastic filling and smoothing of areas. And so I just thought it might make sense, especially if we're around a time where it could be renewed, to just add that little word to kind of explain that if there's any grading that has to happen on trails, that it consists of a minimal amount, a de minimis amount of backfilling.
Okay, if, I guess if the rest of the commission feels like they don't want to extend this and the Trails Committee has to come in to, with a new order of conditions, that could be one of the new conditions, one of the new comments that would be written into it. Or you could ask them to do a minor plan change. But they'd have to want to do that.
So what's the sense from the commission?
So first off, before the commission acts, I read this. So and there's a bunch of stuff that in the beginning that's not needed any supervision for. They can do without letting anyone know, just common things, general things that happen. And some of those haven't happened, and they're not even doing it. And I don't even know why. One in particular is like they can like cut trees up to 15 feet, like in the air all around, but they haven't been doing that, and they don't even know why that's in there. So that's not something they're capable of doing anyways. Not climbing, cutting trees. They're just cutting trees that that are in the way. But on the second tier, any retopping, so the second, there's like paragraph 1, these are the things you can do without notification. Paragraph 2, these are things that need notification. In that paragraph, it says resurfacing of trails needs a discussion with the Conservation Administrator or the Conservation Commission. So I think that what you're talking about, Anika, is covered.
So the notification is needed if they are changing a route, if they're installing a new boardwalk, if they're replacing footings, if they're hardening the surface of a trail with stone. Do you think it's covered?
Let me find it, because I'm sure.
I think we're talking
It might
about
be.
page
Yeah, let me.
16. I can. Yeah, right. That's not gonna help. I do want to reach out to Mr. Schifaletti. You're not required to stay on the meeting if you don't want to. You can definitely stay. But anyway, just thought I'd say that.
I assume he just left his laptop inside and went out on the deck.
Yeah, maybe. So no notification is required for removing litter and fallen trees, cutting brush and branches up to 12 feet above and within 2 feet of the sides of the treadway to maintain a safe trail corridor. removing tripping hazards and backfilling any excavations to provide an even treadway surface. That was the part where I wanted to put in and de minimis backfilling of any excavations to provide an even treadway surface.
I told you your options. I'm looking on my iPad for this, for the trail permit. I'm not going to sign into my computer.
So
I don't know. I think for,
I mean, maybe we're all set. Maybe we're all set.
what does the committee think? I mean, I see Martha has her hand up. That's how I read it. Retopping of trails. Can you send that to me? Do you have it? So it's first in my, I'm going to read it right now. I know where the spot is I'm looking for. I just can't find it.
It may be the same spot I'm looking at. I will send it. Yeah. Martha?
I'm just going to suggest that I had never heard the word de minimis before. So I'm not sure that that's a word that would change the behavior of whoever is doing the backfilling. But I also just think I would suggest that we renew it as is and have conversations with the Trails Committee to make sure they understand that we don't want them bringing in huge loads of soil to fill up these trails, but just smooth out the surface a little bit where they have to. So I don't think it requires a whole meeting to have them apply with a new permit.
Okay.
I think, you know, and to add to that, in order to get soil out there, they have to notify the DPW, who we work with very closely, and they would say, hey, do you know about this? I'm also the liaison. I would have to know about it. I mean, I'm going to the meetings. It hasn't happened before. There was an occasion, like me and Brian reviewed a site where they had put down too much gravel, but we had known about, they asked us to look at the site, approve the site. We talked about getting the gravel out there. Too much gravel was put down, but all that approval happened prior to, you know, and then we came back and got our final review, and we asked them to, you know, to rake some off and make it a little bit, you know, less. Instead of being about 3.5 inches, we wanted about 2 inches because it was spilling over the side into the wall. They were happy to do that, and it got taken care of right away.
Right.
So that process is in place for this retopping of trails. So they cannot bring gravel or, and so.
Okay.
That's,
If there's been, if issues.
I mean, that's what we're working on.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. Go ahead, Andrew.
You're getting an impression it's a formality, but I personally haven't read it. When was this permit for last put into effect? So is it like 5 years ago that it was last reviewed?
It was it's dated 2009.
I mean, you're saying it's like a lot of work. But if it's just the same thing that they're going to resubmit it, is that really a lot of? I mean, I don't think it hurts just to come before us so we could talk to them. I mean, it's a formality. I don't think anything will change probably, but I haven't read it, so I'd be approving something I haven't read. Which isn't. I mean, we talk about all sorts of things. I mean, it's not like we were trying to slow them down for doing their work. I don't want to be any red tape, but yeah, I don't see any harm done in them just coming before us and talking through the permit. But I don't know, just my feeling.
You should have read it. It went out in the packet. I think it's been out before. And, you know, if you want them to come before you to rewrite a new permit and to add those changes, then that's certainly your consideration. It wasn't just issued, it was issued in 2009, I guess. But it has
2016.
but then it has to be extended, and each time it was extended, it was reviewed. So,
But do you still would consider I reviewed it? I mean, I get a use in a lot
Well,
of
like-
stuff. I only review stuff that I know I really need to talk about, so I didn't really read it. I apologize.
okay, yeah, so I don't know what to say. That's fine if you, I mean, it's just, it's your prerogative to ask them to come back and issue the, to get another general permit, if that's what you want, to review it.
Well,
So,
yeah, it's up to the commission, but I mean,
You could also ask them to come to the next conservation meeting and talk, and then have an opportunity to review it between this one and the next one. And then you could talk to the Trails Committee in person, and hopefully that would help you kind of, keep this in place, but yet satisfy your need to, understand how they will use it, how this fits with the other tools that they use to maintain the trails. So, but I'd like to let them know. So is it a new, you just want them to get a new permit, or are you going to entertain extending this? And we have to do it a month prior to, so we have all of July to do it.
I'm open to extending it. I just want to have a more formal conversation about it.
Sure. So with that, I'll say I'll invite him to the next conservation meeting. We'll put it on the agenda for a discussion.
okay. Any other comments? No? Okay.
Okay, where are we
I
at?
think at this point it goes to Joe for an update on 1505.
Thanks. So yes, and I'm not sure whether I should say 1505 or 1503. I understand the project was reviewed and approved by conservation under the name 1503 because previously there was one house on the property with that address, and then it was redeveloped into two houses that are there today. The problematic areas are all on the 1505 property. So just to review, over a year ago, I actually looked and found the conservation minutes. This was before my time, in the winter of like the beginning of 2021. The developer agreed to, there was an area of trees outside of the area of limit of work of the approved order of conditions that were cut down. The developer agreed to a planting plan to reforest that area. Yeah, Chuck's presenting the plan that was agreed on with the commission at the time. Then there was lots of back and forth with them because they planted the trees not in the area shown here, and they were too close together, and then a bunch of trees got moved and more trees got added. So I checked in again now that the winter's passed, and I've been interacting directly with the homeowners, who apparently do not, the developer does not communicate with the homeowners, at least not according to the homeowners. So anything that we were saying to the developer about what should or should not be mowed, for example, was not being conveyed to anyone who had anything to do with mowing. So I did engage with the homeowners directly because I met them on a previous site visit. I reviewed this with them, told them this is what the, we'd agreed on with the previous, or with the developer, who wasn't the owner at the time we agreed it. And this is where this gets a little weird, is that apparently the house was sold in the first half of 2021. But the violation was committed by the owner at the time, the developer. The violation was not committed by the current owner, which is where this gets a little weird. So speaking with the current owner, they are not excited about the idea of reforesting the entire area. So I said, well, I don't know how we handle this because you didn't commit the violation. I know if you committed the violation, we would absolutely hold you to reforesting the entire area because you know, sorry, you don't get away with cutting down, entire forests in the, 100-foot buffer zone. On the other hand, if this was, happened, 15 years ago, then, we wouldn't be asking the current owner to revert the lawn to forest. So, so I'm not sure how we want to proceed here. I suggested that they not mow the no-mow area while we talk about it. They did agree, by the way, the other areas of concern besides this area that Chuck's presenting here in the blue and green was there was concern about erosion to the north of the driveway. That appears to have gotten better. The homeowner, not the developer, put in a bunch of gravel around the boulders at the top of the driveway to reduce erosion. Seems to have been effective. And then the behind the house, so directly to the north of the house, in the 10-foot between the no structure and no disturb lines, it's a very shady area that's currently got, the only vegetation there is some sod that I think the developer put down the sod actually. But grass is not going to grow back there. It's too shady. I recommended that the homeowner, talk to a landscaper about whatever kind of ground cover would grow in that area to stabilize the soil and to plant that as soon as possible. And the homeowner was, entirely in favor of that. So I think there isn't any disagreement or even question to talk about I'm aware of, other than the area by the street and what needs to happen there and who's responsible for what. And I didn't know the answers to that, so I put them in an email to Chuck and I said I'd bring them up here too.
Yeah, so the certificate of compliance couldn't be issued until the grass is established or some sort of erosion control is in place. I mean, we have erosion control, but we need something permanent like grass, like, their landscaper can come up with something for the back of the house. They want to do that, that's great, but that just puts, quick and tidy, ribbon on the conservation certificate of compliance, just that puts that off. As far as the no-mow area, they own it, because so right now, who the responsible party, I'm unsure of, but whoever the responsible party is that has control of that piece of property has to establish a no-mow area and maintain it. That's an agreement we made with Jim. He was doing it, and the commission felt like that's what's needed, and it's not, it shouldn't be suggested that it can be changed. I think that was an area that was not supposed to be touched, and we came up with this solution to have it revegetate, and it was a no-mow area. It's unfortunate that Jim didn't tell the owners of what that's supposed to look like, a couple years from now, because I think that's where the surprise is.
Yeah, I don't. All right. I mean, this is so if I understand what you're saying here, the fact that, well, frankly, Jim committed the violation, but Devin and Cam own the land, it is Devin and Cam's responsibility to remediate the impact of that violation. Is that how this, I mean, I would.
Unfortunately, that's how it would go, but we're actually only talking about not mowing. The erosion control is up to, right now, I don't think, well, actually we signed off on these projects. If the new homeowners have title of these properties, then that's their responsibility.
Can I ask, was the rear erosion control like between the back of the house, like along that red line, along the 25-foot line, was that ever pulled up?
And no, it's still there. The mulch sock,
Okay,
staked mulch sock is there.
okay.
Um,
But I think it's my understanding that, you know, the responsibility of implementing the order of conditions travels with the deed. That's why it gets
Okay.
recorded on the deed.
hmm.
Okay, so I know a number of these situations don't seem,
They don't have to pay for it. We have the bond.
that's true.
Hmm. Okay, that's. I mean, I think at this point there's relatively. I mean, yeah, the trees were probably the big expense, which the homeowners did not. I think Jim Castellano covered that himself, but.
Because you said there's still one that one of them died.
Oh,
So-
so over on the right-hand side, the row of there along the rise above the stormwater infiltration system number 2. So the plan here calls for 8 shrubs. By my count, there are 8 shrubs surviving and 1 that died.
So that's not a lot of,
So
lot for one
would,
shrub.
you know, so my assumption, someone correct me if I'm wrong, is that as long as they, you know, as long as many plants survive as we asked for, then what we asked for, I think, has been delivered.
However, Joe, just to be clear, the area that could not be mowed is still getting mowed.
Right now, it's actually being half mowed, or rather, at the time I
Right.
visited last week. So it was because they had no idea what the no-mow area, extent of the no-mow area was, because no one had told the homeowners. They do now.
They do now.
Yes.
So is this something we should kind of return to in a month and see?
Don't you remember we painted the ground
Oh, God.
and they didn't know what that meant?
Yeah. So, well, Jim made a big theatrical performance of painting and writing the words "no mow" on the grass.
We cannot know from where we are.
Yeah, it
except
seems
for
like
what
that would
people
have covered
say,
it if you're painting it
whether
on the ground.
I don't.
what people got told. So
Yeah, I don't think. I think he. I mean, unless the homeowners happened to go out in their yard looking for things written on the grass, which I can't say I've ever done myself, that people didn't tell me about. I assume the homeowners had no idea. There were a bunch of orange markings on the ground, the positions of trees and so forth. I'm pretty sure it washed away by the time we checked on the trees a couple weeks later. So I assume the homeowners never saw that line, or they saw it, but they had no one told them what its significance was.
I drove by today or yesterday, and there is definitely tall grass in the area under the trees and mown grass along the driveway. And if you look at the plot plan, if you can move it back into the front, that actually matches what we asked for. There's a stretch along the driveway where it's written herbaceous native plantings, but those plantings are actually supposed to be
That's a label on the green area.
right. So
Yes.
I think the area they have left unmowed is appropriate to the shape on this plot plan. I didn't stop and measure it, but eyeballing it as I drove by at 30 or 40 miles an hour, it looked pretty good.
It's probably, yeah, because it doesn't parallel the driveway. It goes perpendicular to Main Street, which is not exactly parallel, which is not exactly it's not exactly parallel to the driveway. It does move away from the driveway. I don't have a good sense of scale here, although it looks like it's a good fraction of the width of the house. So that's a reasonable area of that can be left mowed in this plan. So it might be a fairly marginal change from what they're currently doing to get to what's on this plan, now that you mention it.
Yeah, and the only question is, did the 8 additional number 7 pot shrubs survive? Because they got mowed several times before we finally made this all clear.
Yeah, no, those there are 2 shrubs at the base of each of the 4 trees in the blue area.
Okay.
So if I recall correctly, I think I forgot to actually take a picture, but
So at this point, Joe, it sounds like a little bit more continued vigilance.
yeah.
Where is that where we're at with
So
it?
I think that the clarifying things to the homeowner would be nice in terms of where is the corner of that blue area. I want to say actually that one of the 4 trees is probably outside the blue area, closer to the driveway, which is consistent with, we were asking them to space out the trees. And I think they placed the trees with, at least the, outside, beyond the minimum spacing we asked for. And that did lead to a tree outside the blue area. And I mean, I don't know if, Mike Flynn did the geometry when he drew this to figure out, if it's actually possible to put 4 trees 15 feet apart and 15 feet from other tree in the blue area, or whether you're going to overflow closer to the driveway. I think they overflowed closer to the driveway in practice. And I think that's fine, because I think the spacings, as I understand them, were minimum spacings to ensure survivability, not maximum spacings. So I think if we could,
So, I mean, Joe, what I'm getting out of this is we are closer and closer to what we originally wanted to see, but there are still just a couple small loose ends. And there's a certain amount of consistency moving forward that we need to see too.
right. Well, and I think if we are clear with the homeowner about what we want, we can get it, which is different, of course, from when we were clear with the developer with what we wanted.
Okay. Are you, not to put you on the spot, Joe, but it sounds like you've established a rapport with them. Would you be game to?
They did reach out to me.
What's
also.
that?
Yeah.
They reached out to me, but I don't want to go in there and if we didn't discuss it tonight, I would have a little bit of a different, a little bit of difference to say about what went on out there. But Joe, you've started this, and you might want to continue.
All right. I mean, I
could be part of it if you want, but
It might be good to transition to you being the point person, Chuck. Just so Joe can go on with his life.
I mean, the
long bike ride.
Yeah.
I think it's only. I mean, it's. I actually drove last time. I think I was going straight from something. So, but yes, I think the only thing they need to know is that, well, first, that they're responsible for the order of conditions. That is not something that anyone actually made clear to them. Maybe they should talk with their attorney that worked with them buying the house. I'm sure they would have lots of things to say to the sellers of the house. That's
so. This is so. I don't know.
Yeah, so we should tell them they're
like,
responsible. We should tell them where the corner of the blue area is.
Except that they sign the acknowledgement paper, so they do know about the order of. I mean, there's a lot of things that you're saying that seem to be inconsistent with all the work that we put into this. I mean, I can't imagine that the commission was out there so many times, painted the lawn, someone was out there planting trees, and they know nothing about it, and they never asked the developer what that means. I was surprised they never came out. I mean, I get that much, but the rest of it, I'm surprised.
My
their
understanding
non-participation about what was happening on their own lawn.
Right. My understanding is that they asked the developer and did not get answers.
Well, they did sign an acknowledgement paper, so they absolutely do know about the order of conditions.
All right.
Unless he forged their signature. So I don't know.
That would be a whole
Which
other level.
I'm sure is not what happened.
No.
Yeah. So I think this does sort of need a little bit of continued attention, though. And so I just wanted to be clear about who was stepping up and how that was going to.
So Joe, let's just go back and see if we can accept where the no-mow area is, because that's what I'm hearing,
Yep.
and come up with a solution for the back, and then tell them to, once the grass or whatever we come up with, it's going to work back there, is done or established, request a certificate of compliance for that. And then I guess we'll address any dead plants if they are dead while we're out there. I know what you're saying, that they're above and beyond what was on the plan, and so there might be some inconsistency with what was on the plan and what we talked about at the site visit. So Jim was saying that he would add 2 shrubs next to each tree, and I think he did that over by the infiltration area too. But we don't have to. This has been such a long, hard fought battle. I'm gonna see if we can get to the end of it. That's really the goal here.
All right. So yeah, I can certainly. I like what Nika is saying about having Chuck is a long-term point person, but on the other hand, I don't think that's actually. But and indeed, hopefully, nothing long-term is needed, because I think all we need in the short term is here's the corner of the blue area. Don't mow it. If you want to mark it with something, go for it. And they've already agreed to plant something behind the house. We just need to see it, established.
Okay.
Yeah, we just need a couple measuring tapes and the granite bounds in place, and I think that line's the 100-foot line, so we should be able to approximate that. But I think we can solve this. I mean, just let them know. And so with that, do you want me to answer that email and get them thinking about some sort of ground cover for the back? And then
Sure.
go.
I mean, the specific. If you can provide any advice on the ground cover itself, awesome. Or even just advice on how to get advice, because that's and I will go ahead and that is the. Oh, by the way, I think the green is the 100-foot line on this, isn't it? The green dashed line. I just realized, probably.
One of the green lines, yes.
Yeah.
But so let's move on to the next item.
Yeah, it looks like between the green and blue is the 100-foot line.
Yep. Got it.
Thank you, Joe, for putting in so much time on this.
So before you push us along, I actually didn't get the resolution. So Joe was saying I should talk to them about the ground cover in the back, and it sounded like you were going to do something too, but Anika jumped in. What was that?
So I will send the next email, but then might need you to take it from there. So I will relay to them because my own understanding of the situation is now greatly expanded thanks to everyone here, which I appreciate. I can relay that to them, and then including the no-mow bounds and their responsibility. And then if they have questions about the mechanics of carrying out the responsibility, what do they need to do to get the certificate of compliance? They can presumably go to Chuck for that, right?
Yeah, just make sure they understand that anything needs to be either completed. Like, I don't know what they would complete instantly, but the grass would need to grow and be established before they even submit an application. I was going to say that I'm available during town hours to meet early in the morning. It seemed like they had some time issues, like you had that real late one night. So I would be available early in the morning, or on Saturday, or on Tuesdays. We're here until 7.
Right. Yeah, they're I think they're much like me. I think their first preference is to meet outside work hours, where obviously your first preference is to work inside work hours, because this is, not their job or my job, and it is your job. But as they said in their email, they were happy to meet with you during, work hours, because that's obviously how they meet with you. So.
Okay. So I'll just answer your email and tell them when I'm available.
Sounds good.
Okay, so the plan change on 4th Street has been continued until the 22nd. And the applicant was just out of town and they just want to present this to the commission. So I know site visits have happened, but that's going to be pushed off till the 22nd. The violation notices, me and Brian haven't done any work on these. And I really haven't heard from Jody, who's over at General Way and Market Basket, other than to say that she had a list of things that she would add to all future contracts, and that they would be more vigilant about what's happening. We didn't get into any trees being planted in lieu of what was taken down. That's also a conversation that I wanted to kind of continue with Brian, but not sure. We've really slowed down on the violation work, and I didn't know if Brian was still available to do that.
Well, check in with him when he gets back.
Next meeting, yeah, we'll have to bring this up again. I'm not sure we're going to move forward at all on anything except for General Way between now and then.
You know, based on the last meeting, Jody sounded eager to get us something before the June 22 meeting. So looking forward to seeing what she can provide for that.
What were you looking for?
Well, at the last meeting, there was, I mean, it's not just the cutting along the parking limit of that property. It's also cutting from the area between Stop and Shop and Salem 5. That whole detention basin, there's a lot more violation happening, and they were going to talk about planting, like what they were going to do next.
Yeah.
Like, there was
So
a
that
lot of additional stuff, and she said she was going to get right to it.
Yeah, so just the redirect is that area between General Way and Stop and Shop had a permit. We gave them a permit to maintain that as vegetation. And inside that permit, they were supposed to go in once a year and cut down any woody vegetation. So that used to be a stand of trees. But their complaint was no one sees their complex. So the commission at that time, 2014, I don't know when it was, said cut down all the trees and maintain it as not lawn, but as, you know, like a field, and plant some stuff. They went in and did that again. The only violation there was the order of conditions had expired. So I don't see that as
I thought the timing,
something unusual. Yeah.
the timing of the cutting was supposed to be in the fall.
I don't know the particulars, but as a matter of fact, they were supposed to cut it at one time and then cut down the woody vegetation in between. But that's pretty similar to what they were told to do with this. All right, so I guess that can be looked into.
But I also asked her to get us a copy of the documentation, because we have no plans to review. We don't know what the operation and maintenance plan is.
Right. So they don't have an order of conditions. They're going to have to come back in and present a new order of conditions. So all that will come in through the new order of conditions, which would incorporate that area between General Way and Stop and Shop. So that's when all that information will come in. That's one step. But the other step was the violation, which was along General Way heading towards like Avon or Ash Street, Ash. And what they're going to do there and how they're going to mitigate for the cut trees. And so, like I said, I got something, information about what they're going to add to all the contracts, the precautions that they've taken into account to make sure this doesn't happen again, but it just didn't talk about the tree replacement. So for that violation, they were going to work with me, not with the commission. So that's how I saw the two things happening as we left the meeting. Oh, me and Brian, by the way. Yeah.
So the expired, so all that's coming back before us is the expired order of conditions.
Yep.
Okay. Okay,
And if they don't,
dates on that.
yeah, so that's it. The violation is pretty typical about how me and Brian have been handling the violations. We've been sending out letters, meeting with the people, telling them what to do. If they do it, great, we leave it at that. If they don't do it, comes back to the commission. So this is where we're kind of like right in that in-between area. If General Way doesn't want to do this work, they'd come back to the commission. But if we say we want 5 trees for what you've cut down, and they plant them, and they provide that piece of paper saying that they understand where they can't cut anymore, and it's accepted, then that's what we're going to do with the violation.
Okay. All right, any questions anybody else has? No, just me. Okay, what's next?
I think we're down to, so no correspondence, no emergency orders. There's a beaver permit coming. There's a new beaver activity off of Track Road near the new bridge. So if anyone wants to look at that, there's an easement next to, I guess that's Walker's Brook. And you would see the beaver dam up along that easement area. So you're heading from Track Road towards Jordan's Furniture, understanding that there's a huge wetland in between. But generally, that's where you're going.
And they're going to remove it? There's an emergency order?
So they have permission to breach the dam, and so the way that works is signed by the health department and signed by the conservation department also. And they have a beaver permit coming in, which is only signed by the health department. Okay, so we don't have any role in the beaver trapping. I did ask if the trapper was trapping at the dam or in the wetland. I let them know that I wouldn't be happy about any trapping in the wetland. I don't think chasing, the beavers up in that area, the traps may get ones that aren't coming down as far as the dam. And so that's the thought behind that. Trap at the dam, get the ones that are heading in that direction and at the dam instead of a whole bunch more. So.
Okay, when's that happening roughly? Next week or two, or?
Next week or two. Typically what happens is we get our trapper in place. He surveys the site. He knows when he's coming in. The DPW pulls the permit. It's a 10-day permit. It can only be renewed one additional time, and then it has to go to the state.
Okay. What else?
And then after the beaver trapper is all set, then the dam will be removed. This is something that the commission does have a role in, and you will either sign or ratify that order or that application. Is there any comment on that? Do you feel like you'd want to sign it rather than ratify it?
I just think the easiest way forward.
Okay. I mean, it is a flooding issue. It is a brand new dam. It's not like it's created habitat. That's usually the concern of the commission. It's not in the winter time. And the concern around that time is if you take a dam out and it lowers the water level, you can actually freeze all the animals that have created huts and dens out there because now they're exposed. So you really want to be careful about when this stuff happens. There's plenty of time between now and whenever to find additional shelter for all those animals. So that's our role in dam breaching and removal.
Any questions from conservation members on that?
I'm just trying to catch up on that one. So there's already a permit out for them to try to catch the beaver.
No.
That's what this dam? No, I missed.
No. There's no the Conservation Commission doesn't have a role in the beaver trapping permit, but it is coming. I made a comment about where it's going to happen. So, but I don't have any authority to enforce that. We certainly have a role in if a beaver dam can be removed. And I went over what I thought you should pay attention to if if this question's in front of you. But my question is, I've been signing these, but I don't know if the commission wants to sign these instead of me, which would slow down the process, but in a way you could, it doesn't seem like that would matter too much, except for the flooding aspect. If it is flooding houses, it's more of an emergency. I'm not sure that's the case here, but I could find out. And I've already told them that they can breach the dam. And usually breaching is, not usually, but the standard for breaching is you take out a square foot a day, and that's all you do. But what happens with beavers is you take out that first square foot, it's rebuilt that night, and take out that same square foot the next day. So you just continually do the same work. It's kind of it's what happens. But when they take the whole dam out, yeah, you're going to bring the water level back down to where it used to be historically, but you're altering the system upstream by lowering the water level. And you can really go out there after this and see what's happening, and see like the silt staining from all the water, and see what's happening. And you wouldn't want to do that like in November because of the freezing aspects. So that's what's in front of us.
Right.
You're going to get there's going to be a permit to breach the dam and take it out in its entirety. That's up to the Conservation Commission. If you don't sign that, that thing stays. It can be appealed to the state. And then, but the beaver trapping's not in front of the commission, and they wouldn't have a role in that.
I think you should just keep signing on it and just keep updating us, because I think if you bring stuff to us, we just might slow it down.
Yeah, so
that's my opinion on that.
Andy, I don't always tell everybody this, but I said it a few times. I was a trapper for about 7 years for the town of Boxford, so I really know this process.
Well, then you're much more, you should be the one handling it. But it is good to know. I didn't know any of this was even happening. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's it unfortunately it happens a lot, and happens in the same spot. And when it happens by 55 Walker's Brook Drive, I've been telling them to put in a beaver deceiver. Jeff Cummings, the highway foreman, actually looked into it, and there's this company called Beaver Solutions. He left him a couple messages, but they never got back to him. And so I think we lost that opportunity with this. The best place to do beaver deceiver is a area where maintenance can get to it. And there's no better spot than right there, because the parking lot goes right next to where the canal is, and they could just reach in and maintain it. There's a lot of maintenance going on because the beavers are completely confused, and they start just burying everything. And so that always has to be dug out. And then, finally, then you'll set the water level at the correct height, and they think everything's fine, and the water stays at a certain height, and they just maintain the dam, and it works out. But there's a little trial and error going with that, and that's why you hire a company, because they have to. That's their responsibility to set the height and to make sure the beaver isn't just like going downstream and creating another dam.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks for the update. That's good to know.
Okay.
All right. So now we're down to, so the DPW meeting, I know that Brian's been going, Carl was going, but Carl hasn't been going lately. It's going to be on the 12th in July because of the holiday, and I think Chris Cole's out this first 2 weeks of July. So I just want to let you know that the next DPW meeting is July 12th. And then the Matera Community Garden is June 15th.
What time?
It's at 3 o'clock, and it's going to be a VIP event. I know there's going to be cupcakes there, and yeah. So no, we're going to have some like Brad Jones and Seth Moulton's office is going to come down, and they approved the money that we got to create the garden. They're going to come down and be part of this ribbon cutting. Kathy Zeke, who you've met through the permitting process, is great at putting these together and reaching out to people, and everyone has really stepped up and is going to come down and enjoy this thing. There's parking at the Matera cabin. There's parking, if you know where this second spot is, just past the entrance. There's another entrance to go to the garages. And then there's also parking at Pearl Street, and you can walk over. So 3 o'clock, and yeah, should be good.
It's gonna be really active next week or two between now and the next meeting. There's so many events happening, a lot going on. Okay, quick question about Pearl Street. And what's
Is this a sign question?
No, the enforcement for 445 Pearl. Any updates?
So that was Jack Rivers. So that project was about to start. So Jack's son wasn't participating in the project. It's Jack Rivers, who's a developer, was. And I was working on that with Thor from Williams and Sparagis.
Yeah.
And we met for a kickoff day, and Jack went into the hospital that day. It's really stopped this project.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Even to this point. I can reach back out to Thor and ask him to find out. I mean, we actually talked about it once a couple months back, and
Okay.
I think he didn't know what was going on with Jack. So that's where that project is. We have plans. We had a permit. We were going to do the work under enforcement order. It was all ready to go, and then it was stopped because of that.
All right. Thanks for the update. Sorry.
Just another semi-unrelated, but related in some point. Thor and his wife next time you see them, they will have their first baby. So he was telling me he was taking a couple of days off prior to this event. So I won't be able to contact him tomorrow or for the next couple of weeks, but after that, it'll be back around. When he reaches out to me, I will get that information.
Well, congratulations to them. I hope everything's good. Okay. And then we have some incredible minutes drafted by
Everybody.
our very own professional expert.
So yeah, this time I want to say that the people drafting the minutes and putting them in the template that we use to approve them was very helpful. And so we have some help back in town hall, but not for drafting the minutes, only for getting them in whatever form the commission gives us the minutes and then getting them onto that template. But it seems like now we're doing that part, so might not be needed.
Well, I want to thank Martha for all of her diligence while participating and taking notes, and everybody else who's participated and helped out with minutes. I want to go through the minutes and see if we can approve and get some off the agenda. So we'll start with the May 25th, 2022 minutes, which I know are perfect as is. So is there a motion to approve the minutes of May 22, 2022? May 25, 2022.
I'll move to approve. You want to go ahead, John?
I second.
Okay, well, I was gonna say I move to approve the
Joe
minutes, our minutes from May 25th, 2022.
Any discussion? No? Okay, let's have a vote.
John Sullivan in favor.
Joe Carnahan in favor.
Andrew Driven in favor.
Martha Moore in favor.
Anika Scanlon in favor. Okay, and I understand we have 3 other minutes. We have, maybe we should start with October 27, 2021.
I think that's the one where I wasn't sure who started the meeting. I sent you that in an email, Chuck.
I know, and I didn't know either. It's something that I can look into, but I was hoping that there was, you guys, someone said, oh no, it wasn't Anika. That was the time when Anika, how come,
Aye.
yeah, did you look at that, Anika? Did you know
Hold on,
you did the meeting?
hold on. I can tell you in a minute. Keep talking.
That was the only comment I got on those minutes, so. What,
Yeah, all the things that were being run sounded like I was the one running the meeting, but then it said Anika Scanlon was the one who called the meeting to order. And that was the question that I thought was a little fishy.
I think there was sometimes, I'm not, correct me if I'm wrong, Nika, there was a couple of meetings where you did leave, like something, like you had like a phone issue or a computer
It's entirely
issue?
possible. Yeah, I did experience a lot of technical difficulties.
It could have been exactly what we have written down.
It could be, Martha, that you had to take over for me at some point.
Yeah, but I mean, the very first thing that happened at that meeting was something that I did instead of you. So that was my question. And I didn't have a chance to go back and find that particular.
Okay.
Well, let's have Martha
Good
open the
thing.
meeting. It sounds like the evidence is pointing that way. It's the
I would
commission.
think so.
Okay, I'll make that change.
If it turns out that's not correct, if I go back and watch the video, can we revise that next month, next
Yes.
week, whatever? Okay, so let's make that change, accept it. I move to accept the minutes as amended for October 27th, 2021.
Second.
And if I find that I'm wrong, we can always fix it next time.
Okay.
Okay.
We have a motion
John-
and a second.
John Sullivan in favor.
Joe Carnahan in favor.
Andrew Driven, I wasn't present, so I'll abstain.
Okay, and Martha Moore in favor?
Anika Scanlon in favor.
Okay, and in the order of what goes in there, does abstain come before against or the other way around?
It's third. It's in
Abstain is
favor,
last.
against, abstention.
So it'll be 4, 0, 1. 4 in favor, 0 against,
Yep.
1 abstain.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and then we have the minutes for September 8, 2021. Are there any comments on those? Okay, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of September 8, 2021.
So moved.
Is there a
Second.
second? Okay,
I didn't see who did the seconding.
Don,
John.
Don, okay.
and can we have a vote on that?
John Sullivan in favor.
Joe Carnahan in favor.
Andrew Driven, I'll abstain.
Martha Moore in favor.
Anika Scanlon in favor. Okay, and then last but not least, we have the minutes of August 25, 2021. Any comments on those? Okay, could I have a motion to approve those minutes?
Move to approve the minutes of August 25th, 2021.
John Sullivan seconds.
Okay, how about a vote?
See what you did there.
John Sullivan in favor.
Joe Carnahan in favor.
Martha
Matthew
Moore,
Goodman, I'll abstain.
Martha Moore in favor.
Anika Scanlon in favor. Okay,
Did you do 11/10/2021?
no.
That was on the list.
Did we have those minutes? I didn't see that we had those.
Oh, okay. I'm just reading off the agenda. Okay,
Yeah,
so this one.
the only ones we don't have are the 11/10 and the 10/13, as far as I could tell.
I agree.
Okay.
We're making good progress. This
Then
is
June 8th.
wonderful.
You know, pesky little June 8. So is there any other business, Chuck? I think we're at the-
No, we're good. We're good. That's all I have, and we're down to the adjournment at 10:04.
Okay,
Wow.
a motion to adjourn or any other business from anybody else?
Okay, so I will move that we adjourn.
Okay,
Second,
all those in favor?
All right.
Okay. All right, thank you, everybody.
Yep. Good night, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Night, everyone.
Have a good night.
good night.